Everybody. Welcome to beautiful, gorgeous Sacramento. It's nice to see all of you here. I'm going to take a roll call in just a minute, but I want to just make sure that everybody understands that as soon as the roll call is taken and a quorum is established, we are immediately going into a closed session. So if you are here for business after the closed session, you will need to vacate the room during the closed session. We estimate that that will probably be hopefully an hour, hopefully no longer than an hour and a half. So we're looking at probably reconvening around 10 to 10:30, okay? So with that said, in the absence of our Secretary Afriat, Vice President Forsyth will be taking the roll.
Dr. Morrow?
Here.
I'm here. Steve Afriat's absent. Fran Burton?
Here.
Yvette Chappelle-Ingram?
Here.
Katie Dawson? Kathleen King?
Here.
Dr. Lai?
Here.
Dr. Lay?
Here.
Meredith McKenzie?
Here.
Dr. Stewart?
Here.
Dr. Witcher?
Here.
Dr. Wu?
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So if all parties that are not members of the board or staff that are allowed to participate in the closed session will please leave the room, and we will let you know as soon as you can come back. Thank you very much. We have a busy schedule for this morning, so we want to get right to it, okay? Have a few items that we want to take care of right now. First, I want to welcome all of you to the meeting this morning, and as you know, will be continued tomorrow. I want to ask all of you to please turn off your cell phones or put them on silent mode. Make sure that they are off of the table so that they don't vibrate in case they start buzzing you, all right? You may notice that board members are accessing their laptops during the meeting. They are using the laptop solely to access board materials. They are not sending emails or going onto Facebook. This meeting is being webcast and will be archived after the meeting and available on the board's website for viewing at a later date. This is an official meeting of the Dental Board of California. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comments and ask for public comment on each agenda item. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak in that item, please raise your hand, let me know, and I will recognize you. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And thank you very much for your cooperation. The first item on the agenda for right now is a report of the Licensing, Certification, and Permits Committee that just met in closed session. That committee met to review and make decisions regarding replacement of licenses that had been previously canceled. The committee will make recommendations, has made recommendations to the board relating to these applications. Okay, so I have been informed by our legal friend that I need to do these individually, so hang with me, okay? The committee recommends that approval of issuance of a new dental license for applicant Dr. S.B. with the condition that successful passing of the California Dental Law and Ethics examination be forwarded to the board. Do we need to, can the board accept these as a group, or do they have to?
No, individually.
Okay. I'm told again by our legal counsel that we need to take a vote on each one of these individually, so will a roll call vote be called?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsyth, yes. Sorry. Burton? Chappelle-Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King,
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 2, the committee recommends approval of issuance of a new dental license with the condition that Dr. A.M. successfully passes the California Dentistry Law and Ethics examination. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Spellingram?
Yes.
Thank you. Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 3, the LCP committee recommends approval of an issuance of a new dental license with the condition that Dr. F.Q. successfully passes the California Dentistry Law and Ethics examination. Do I have a motion? So moved?
Second?
Seconded? Any questions or comments? Roll vote, please.
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton?
Yes.
Spellingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you. The LCP committee recommends approval of an issuance of a new RDA license with the condition that RDA GO successfully passes the RDA Law and Ethics written examination. Do I have a motion? So moved. Seconded?
Who second?
Okay. Any comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Spellingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you. LCP committee recommends approval of issuance of a new RDA license with the condition that RDA ES successfully passes the RDA Law and Ethics written examination. Do I have a motion? So moved. Seconded.
McKenzie? Sorry. Whoa, again. All right.
Any,
All right.
any comments or questions? Thank you. Yes.
If I'm right, and I might not be, but the chair would usually give a short report in terms of give us a little context in terms of their recommendation, and then I think that I was feeling like I was a little bit better prepared to vote. So when I come in here and it's been a closed session and then we're just asked to vote, am I the only one that's kind of wondering about that process?
Okay.
No, because I was looking at this list, and none of these initials are on this list, so I don't know
The
either.
initials are on
The
which
first
list?
and last, the initials of the first and last name.
Yeah, but none of the last four have been on this list. So is that list different from,
I don't know what list you're talking about. The only thing I have is the closed session manual for the LCP committee.
okay?
So typically what happens is, I think what's missing probably in this report is that the chair would be letting the rest of the board know that a summary of what happened. So, because the rest of the board hasn't seen any of this information, they're coming forward and essentially have said that they've met all their qualifications, have submitted the required documents in order to apply for a license reissuance.
Okay, I can back that up.
Okay?
Okay, I appreciate your comment, and I will take that under advisement and reprimand. Okay? Kindly. Okay. All of the applications for issuance of a new license to replace a canceled license, the applications have been deemed complete. All required information to forward that application to the committee has been met, and the staff has provided us with that information. Now, first of all, there are a number of things that need to be met in order for a license to be reissued after it has been canceled for more than 5 years. In other words, after it has been inactive for more than 5 years. And that's found in Business and Professions Code Section 1718.3. And it says a license issued by the board that is not renewed within 5 years after its expiration may not be renewed, restored, reinstated, or reissued. However, the holder of the license can apply for issuance of a new license to replace the canceled license if the following requirements are satisfied. Now, the board staff has verified to the committee that all of these requirements have been met. No fact, circumstance, or condition exists which would justify denial of licensure pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 480. He or she pays all of the fees which would be required of him or her if he or she were then applying for the license for the first time, and all renewed and delinquent fees which have accrued since the date on which he or she last renewed his or her license. And number 3, he or she takes and passes the examination, if any, which would be required if he or she were then applying for the license for the first time, or otherwise establishes to the satisfaction of the board that with due regard for the public interest, he or she is qualified to practice the profession or activity in which he or she again seeks to be licensed. So these applications come to us certified by our staff that all of those requirements are met. Okay, so those are set in code of what needs to be met in order to renew a license that has been 5 years or more inactive. Okay, does that help at all? Now, as far as each one of these individuals are concerned, the reason for their license needing to be reissued is because they did not pay their dues, but they have been practicing in other states during that period of time in most cases, okay? There were a few who might have had a couple of years that they weren't practicing, but in general, they have kept up with their skills, their knowledge, and so forth. So they have had to.
You can't go into great detail because
Right. So I have some limits as to what I can divulge to you because they were in closed session. But every one of these individuals that their license requires continuing education for renewal has had to take all of those required continuing education courses, sometimes as many as 400 hours, and submit that to the board in order for them to have a completed application that can come to us. So we have assurance that these individuals are up to date. However, because our laws change, we need to make sure that they are aware of California's laws, even though they have been practicing in New Jersey or wherever. So that's why we are requiring that they, in addition to all the other requirements by this code section, we are requiring that they take the current law and ethics examination.
And I guess I would just say that that sort of a general statement would help us feel like we're better informed before we're asked to vote.
Got it. Yeah. I appreciate your interjection of that.
And I will say, moving forward on the memo that the full board gets, essentially the report of the licensing committee, will recap what the requirements are for reissuance of a license. So you'll have that information. So in the future, when the report comes from the committee, you'll know essentially what they considered. Do you think that's adequate? Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if the committee has already gone through all that, why do we have to vote on individual? Can't we just accept the report rather than to vote on something we know pretty little about?
Well, the reason why I did that is because our legal counsel told me I needed to, and if, buddy, you don't want on your back, it's your attorney.
I understand that.
Agreed.
It's just a question.
And the reason for that is if any of the board members have any questions with respect to any of the individual applicants, you may not want to accept the committee's recommendation with respect to, yeah.
We don't know who they are, though.
That's true. They only give-
Is,
only give a band.
there would be no prohibition against the board providing all the board members with a copy of the information that the LCP committee sees. So you'll be more informed about what took place in closed session. And you would not be voting blindly. So that's just something to consider moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-on question then? If we have the background, it seems like we could then ask questions, and then we could vote on all at once.
Assuming everyone.
Agreed
would-
on
would-
all of them.
That's correct.
That's, yes.
Yeah.
So we have a motion for RDA-ES, and we have Dr. Witcher motion and Dr. Wu seconded. Do you want to do a roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes,
Lai? Lay? McKenzie?
Yes.
Stewart? Witcher? And Wu.
Thank you. Thank you. LCP Committee recommends the approval of the issuance of a new RDA license with the condition that RDA MS successfully passes the RDA Law and Ethics written examination. May I have a motion?
okay.
Seconded? Anybody second? Seconded? Thank you.
So I have a question. I'm assuming then this is another person that was out of state coming back, and we need to make sure they know all the latest rules coming back to the state. Can we assume that's the background?
Yes.
Okay.
Since the application has been forwarded to the committee, the staff has verified that all of those requirements are met.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll call the roll.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes,
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu?
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll clarify this process moving forward in hopes of streamlining it, and I'm not sure what happened, so we'll look into this.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes from the May 11 and 12 Dental Board meeting. Those have been provided you in your packet. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how this works, but I was there from noon on the first day, and I'm listed as absent. So it just is a little odd because, of course, I voted on a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't know. I was absent when the roll was first taken, but then I was there at noon on.
Any other questions or comments regarding the minutes?
So I motion that we accept the minutes with the change that Mackenzie mentioned.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded as amended. Moved, is there any second?
I'll second.
Seconded, moved, and seconded. Any other further questions? Any comments or questions from members of the public in attendance? With none, call the roll.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? And Wu. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. It is my pleasure at this point in time to welcome Dr. Kumar, comes to California Department of Public Health with more than 25 years of experience in New York State Bureau of Dental Health, and he is the director of the dental health component of the California State Department of Health. And he's going to give us a presentation. We're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to working with you collectively to improve access to care and the level of health care in California. So welcome, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you very much. I've been asked to talk about the challenges, dreams, and opportunities here in California. So instead of giving my personal opinion, I would like to articulate the opinions expressed by our stakeholders and partners. So I came from New York. New York is a large state with 18 million people and a very diverse state. But when I moved to California, I realized the problems here are more complex, more diverse, and a lot bigger than New York. It's actually twice the size in terms of population and 3 times when you look at the land size. So I just wanted to say that everything is going to be a little bit more complex here in California and a little bit more challenging compared to some of the other states. What we have been working on for the last year or so is to deliver some of the products that the Budget Act laid out for us in 2014. So our priorities has been to develop a disease burden document, develop a state oral health plan, and develop a surveillance system, and to develop a partnership. So these are some of the key elements of a good chronic disease control program in any state. It's been recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and also by a National Association of State and Territorial Dental Directors. And the same format is used for addressing problems, whether it is diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiovascular diseases. So oral diseases are primarily chronic diseases, and we follow the similar format in addressing the public health problems. So we've been working with an advisory committee to develop a state oral health plan. So there are a couple of members who have actively participated. I see Ms. Fran Burton, who attended almost every meeting, and Dr. Wong Lei, who participated in our meetings and deliberations. So the opinions that I'm expressing here is that of the advisory committee, and I'll take, I'll show you about 20 slides or so, and if you want to stop me and interrupt me, please do so. Or you can ask me the question at the end of the presentation. So every state has a state health improvement plan, and California has a couple of plans, one specifically geared towards addressing chronic diseases. It was published in 2014, and it's called the California Wellness Plan. And there are certain oral health indicators included in the California Wellness Plan. But it's not a comprehensive oral health plan, and therefore the department and our partners identified the need for a comprehensive state oral health plan. And that was the purpose of convening an advisory committee and to come up with a plan. It's very similar to what happens in a private office when dealing with patients, and in the sense that, for every patient we have a treatment plan, and for every state to address the public health problems, we have a state oral health plan. And these plans are usually 5 or 10 years plan, and we have a process to evaluate the progress we made, and that's also part of the state oral health plan development process. So so the advisory committee identified the issues, challenges, and opportunities, and we are in the process of developing a document that will be reviewed and released sometime next year. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides about some of the issues. So as you will see in this slide, this is data from a national survey. And what it shows is that California is ranked very low in terms of oral health problems in children. So Vermont has the best data, best health outcomes, whereas California. So in this particular survey, about 22% of California parents reported that their children had oral health problems in the last 12 months. So there are other data, and most of them show that California is not doing well. So our goal is to make California the #1 state, in other words, the healthiest state in the nation. So that's our overarching goal that we want to achieve over the next 10 years.
Can I ask a couple questions on this slide? Is children 0 to 18?
17.
17.
17.
And then
Yes.
this is parent
Reporting.
Not Denical?
No.
Okay. And then if you overlaid the payment schedule, would it somewhat match?
So you'll see
results we
Texas is ranked one, rank below California. And in my opinion, Texas has the best reimbursement rate in the nation in the Medicaid program.
So you don't believe it's related to reimbursement?
I'll talk about the
Okay.
frameworks and how it will affect the overall health outcome. So, there are 3 major problems that public health problems that we'd like to address in state oral health plan. The #1 is tooth decay, with the most common chronic disease in children, 5 times or 4 times higher, and depending on the state you look at, compared to asthma, the next chronic disease. So as the data shows, the first from age 2 to 5, I use the national data because we don't have California-specific data. So as you will see, 1 in 10 children by age 2 will have experienced tooth decay. By the time they reach 5 years, 4 in 10 will have experience. So this is a preventable disease, and we should be able to reduce the magnitude of the problem in the population. But with respect to California, you'll see that in kindergarten, this is based on a survey conducted in 2000, approximately 5 in 10 children had already experienced tooth decay. By the time they reached 3rd grade, almost 7 in 10 had experienced tooth decay. So what it doesn't show is the disparities. And when it comes to oral health, disparities are profound when you look at by race, by ethnicity, by income, by some of the other socioeconomic factors. So we have a national goal to eliminate health disparities. And the advisory committee also made that a priority for the California State Oral Health Plan. So the process we engaged in developing the state plan used this framework where we first developed the disease burden document, then searched all the literature available to document the problems and some of the strategies that are being pursued in some other states. And we convened an advisory committee, and then the advisory committee developed the framework for addressing some of these problems. And in the process, they also defined the problems to be addressed in the state oral health plan. And we engaged several work groups to develop specific goals, objectives, strategies, and also a 2-year work plan to implement some of these strategies using the existing resources. So, what are some of the problems that the advisory committee identified? So number one is strong, effective policies, funding, leadership and communication understanding to implement both evidence-based and demonstrable models of prevention and treatment are not in place in California. Californians with the worst oral health typically do not access or receive dental services. And then the infrastructure and capacity are lacking to promote culturally sensitive, community-based oral health programs. There is an absence of visible, consistent, effective messaging that motivates and activates key stakeholders to do what is necessary to change oral health in California. And finally, lack of current data on oral health status, unmet treatment needs, insurance coverage, utilization are not available. And these are, this information is critical to inform decision makers and also to assess interventions and outcomes. So this is one of the frameworks, that we use to inform the state oral health development process. So it's important to notice here what contributes to overall health outcomes. So there are 2 components here, length of life and quality of life. So when it comes to oral health, it's mostly about quality of life. And also, when we are talking about oral and pharyngeal cancers, it also affects the length of life. So if you look at this framework, what it shows is the clinical care component is only 20%. So the contribution of health care towards overall health outcomes is 20%, as compared to some of the other factors like the behavioral factors is 30%, socioeconomic factors is 40%, and the physical environment is 10%. So this model is developed for overall health outcomes, and we think it's equally applicable to oral health, because if you look at some of the health behaviors that affect overall oral health, they are listed here like tobacco use, diet, and alcohol and drug use, and sexual activity. You may be wondering how sexual activity affects oral health. In California, oral and pharyngeal cancers caused by HPV infection is going up. And the reason for that is HPV infection. And the dental community can do a lot to spread the message about the risk associated with oral and pharyngeal cancers and how it can be addressed by immunization in the younger population. So, and the socioeconomic characteristics, and if you look at oral health, the oral diseases, receipt of dental care, so they're all distributed unevenly, and if you look at education, employment, income, they're all associated with oral health outcomes. And then finally, physical environment, air and water quality, and we have a very good intervention, fluoridation. So if we improve the quality of the water by adding fluoride, it makes a big difference in terms of population health. So the another public health concept is to address, oral health disparities and to address health equity. So if we provide the same resource to everybody, it may not be sufficient to accomplish optimum oral health, because some groups, as you see here, small, younger children, They need more resources compared to older children. And the another framework was developed by the Surgeon General in 2000, and it's for improving oral health. And it has 5 components. One is to change the perceptions. So for too long, mouth has been separated from the rest of the body. So integrating oral health as part of oral health is a key component if you want to address oral health problems and issues in California. The other one is to increase collaboration. So, the dental community by itself will not be able to address all the problems. We need to collaborate with other professional groups in order to make a big difference in oral health. And there are effective programs available, and we need to replicate those programs so we can reach large proportion of the population. And then the other component the Surgeon General recommended is to increase workforce diversity, capacity, and flexibility. And lastly, to build a science base in order to address oral health problems. So this is a framework recommended by Tom Frieden. He's the director of Centers for Disease Control. And this is a framework for public health action at the local level and the state level. And what it shows is layers in a pyramid. So there are 5 layers here, starting at the base of the pyramid, socioeconomic factors. And the next layer is changing the context to make individuals' default decisions healthy. And the long-lasting protective interventions come next, clinical interventions, and finally, education counseling. So he highlighted the fact that, if you want to increase population impact, we have to focus on the factors that are in the base of the pyramid. Because the factors at the top of the pyramid, like education and counseling, require individual efforts. And when you want to improve population health, it is very difficult. And tobacco cessation is a perfect example. And the most of the improvement have occurred, researchers attributed to tobacco taxes and also a Clean Indoor Act and those kinds of interventions, and to some extent to education and counseling. So similarly, in our field, I usually say that if we sent everybody to college, we will have solved the oral health problems in California. So it's very difficult to do that. So in the absence of that, what can we do to improve oral health in California? So we looked at 2 factors, insurance coverage and health literacy, as key components if you want to improve oral health in California. And the next level is fluoridation and school screening. And California has a policy to encourage universal screening in kindergarten. And we have seen improvements in places like in San Francisco, where the Department of Public Health collaborates with partners, the Dental Society, and the Department of Education, and they have seen improvement over the years. So something like that to reach every kindergarten can make a big difference. And then, of course, school-based interventions and clinical practice to adopt evidence-based interventions, and then finally education and counseling. And these interventions can make a big difference. And so we always look at federal government to see what is happening at the federal level, and they came out with a strategic framework. And according to that framework, integrating oral health and primary oral, they identified 5 different interventions to improve oral health. And here they are listed here: integrating oral health and primary health care, prevent disease and promote oral health, increase access to oral health care and eliminate disparities, increase the dissemination of oral health information and improve health literacy, and finally advance oral health in public health policy and research. So the advisory committee looked at these reports and came up with recommendations for the state oral health plan. So the final framework that we looked at is this concept of community clinical linkage. If you look at utilization of dental care, especially among low-income children, you'll see the rates below 50%. So there are many reasons why it's difficult for young children and children in general, even adults. There are many barriers, and one way to eliminate barriers is to motivate patients, inform and activate the patients. And there are many community resources available, so we have to engage the community resources, whether it is at WIC, Head Start, schools, or in other settings, and then prepare the clinicians to be proactive in reaching out to the community and to tap into some of these resources so they can be linked to a source of dental care. So this is the concept of community clinical linkage in order to increase dental visit rates. So dental visit rate is one of the leading health indicators in our national plan called the Healthy People 2020. So there are many goals that we identified, and that's one of the goals. And the way to achieve that is through community clinical linkages. So the committee came up with 5 goals. So I'll briefly go over these goals. The first one is to address determinants of oral health and promote healthy habits and population-based interventions to improve oral health. The second one is to align systems and programs to support this whole concept of community clinical linkages. And that is to improve dental visit rates so patients can receive preventive and early treatment services in a timely manner. And the third goal is to collaborate to expand infrastructure capacity and payments to address goal 1 and 2. And then the goal 4 addresses development and implementing communication strategies to improve health literacy in the population. And lastly, we need current data. We need, in order to track progress, identify problems, and in order to do that, we have to have a surveillance systems. So these are the 5 broad goals identified by the advisory committee. And for each goal, we have very specific objectives. And I'll use a couple of examples to show them the strategies and the overall plan, how it can work once it is implemented. So with respect to, I know this, the dental board is concerned about workforce capacity. So the plan looked at, many of these strategies and recommended that we expand workforce capacity. By that we mean is, providing training so dentists and physicians can adopt proper protocols and start treating, young children with special health care needs. So in order to do that, we need training and integration of oral health into systems. So it's not only about about dentists, dental hygienists, dental assistants, and also physicians, but we want to include community health workers, home visitors, because they all bring special skills. And so, for example, in nursing home, in order to improve the oral health for nursing home patients, we need to integrate oral health and training into the whole system. And then explore supporting demonstration program to test methods. For example, a large proportion of patients show up in emergency rooms. So how do we go about addressing the problem of the needs of these patients? And especially because in emergency rooms, it's all acute care. They may get at most a prescription, but there's a need to follow up. So we don't have good models. So we would like to see a demonstration program developed to see how these patients can be linked to a source of dental care, ongoing dental care. And the another one that we considered is expanding the loan repayment programs for students of dentistry and dental hygiene. So I'm highlighting some of the key components related to workforce that was recommended by the advisory committee. So how does this plan work? So here is an example. We have very specific objectives. We want to reduce the prevalence of caries in kindergarten children from the current rate of approximately 54% to 43% in 10 years. And in third grade children from 71% to 56%. So this is evidence-based process. And why not 0? Why not 20%? Because at the federal level, they use the criteria of 10% improvement over 10 years. So most chronic diseases, you can expect at the most a reduction of 1% per year. That's the consensus. So we adopted the same methodology for California. So although I would like to see all 3 years old, that's my dream, cavity-free by the time they reach 3 years. And that's not going to happen at the population level. And therefore, we have to be realistic in coming up with objectives. And this is the objectives that we came up with. So to reduce with respect to young children. So in order to do that, in order to reduce the prevalence of caries in children from 54% to 43% in kindergartners, we have to start addressing oral health as early as pregnancy. And then, a year one dental visit, whether it happens at the physician's office and then referred to a dentist or a dental hygienist. So it has to, year one, start very early. And if we do that, we can put children on a different trajectory. And by the time they reach kindergarten, they should have lower prevalence of caries. And then if we do everything possible, assess and then link and provide preventive care in kindergarten and address their treatment, then we should see a huge reduction in caries prevalence by the time they reach third grade. So this is this is one of the plans to address problems in young children. And so as I said, there are many interventions available. We have to address determinants of oral health, that is the literacy and insurance coverage and water fluoridation. And then, of course, at home, you have to encourage toothbrushing and reduce sugar intake. And then increase dental visits through supporting community clinical linkages. That is involving the dental delivery system, interprofessional collaboration to make improvement. So it's a comprehensive plan to address oral health in California. So we had to set some priorities, and we have to identify population in greatest need. We have to identify evidence-based interventions, and this is a plan for 10 years, and we have the opportunity to evaluate and see what adjustments are needed over the next 10 years. So it requires, it requires participation of all partners. So this is not a plan for the California Department of Public Health. This is a plan for California, and government alone cannot address all the issues, so we need every partner to be engaged in order to solve this problem. So there are some exciting opportunities. For example, we have a grant from the Health Resources Services Administration to improve the oral health of pregnant women. And there is the opportunity to expand and reach more kindergarten children through this policy of kindergarten screening. And recently, the California Children's Dental Disease Prevention Program has been, was restored in the current budget, so we are in the process of implementing that program. And another exciting opportunity is the Dental Transformation Initiative that the Department of Healthcare Services is currently undertaking. So $740 million over a 5-year period and another 10 million if incentive payment, so a total of possibility of getting $750 million to invest in improving the system. So there are 4 domains. One is to increase preventive services utilization for children, and the second one is to implement care risk assessment and disease management strategies in young children, children under the age of 6. And the third domain addresses continuity of care. And the fourth domain is local dental pilot programs. So some 15 pilot programs will be supported through this mechanism to improve oral health in children under the Medicaid program. So, the California Department of Public Health collaborates with the Department of Healthcare Services. So if anyone is more interested in getting more details, I'll be happy to connect you with the Department of Healthcare Services, and they can provide the details. So this is a 5-year plan, an exciting opportunity for California. And as far as I know, I think that California is the first state to get this approval through the 1115 waiver. So lastly, what I want to say is, this is a collective effort, and in order to bring about impact at the population level, we need a common agenda. And we have to work with partners, and we have to develop shared measurement systems and approaches to evaluating progress. And we have to reinforce the activities, not duplicate the activities of the partners, and streamline some of these activities. And in order to do that, we need continuous, consistent, open communication. And what our program can do at the state level is to serve as a backbone organization to convene, coordinate, and provide dedicated staff to undertake this effort. So that's my hopefully, that's my dream, and hopefully we'll be able to implement some of these strategies in the coming years. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for your presentation. Very insightful. Any members of the board have any questions or comments that they would like to address to Dr. Kumar? Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Kumar for being here and for providing the overall strategic plan that your department has for the state. It's been almost 20 years since we had a state dental director in California, so this is a very welcoming news to us. I have a question. Relate to your slide. You said that the current data are lacking. So I'm assuming that you'll be collecting the data. Could you kind of let us know what kind of data you're looking for?
Okay.
And is something that the dental board could help providing? Thank you.
Insurance coverage, for example. I'll give you that example. So a lot of things have happened since the implementation of the ACA. And we don't know exactly what proportion of children in California have dental insurance. So the data we are using is based on a survey conducted in 2007. So we are making decisions based on data that's about 10 years old. So that's what we are talking about. When it comes to disease prevalence, health outcomes, like what proportion of children in California has dental disease, we are using the 2006 data. So we need current data to track progress, set objectives, track progress, and measure, evaluate the impact of interventions. So in order to improve our planning process, we need current data. I just cited a couple. We do have good data on certain indicators. For example, oral and pharyngeal cancers. If you go to the department website, you'll see a map of oral and pharyngeal cancers, mortality, incidence, and % of cases detected in early stage. That's current data. So we do have some data. Tooth loss data we do have from a survey that we do every 2 years. But when it comes to health outcomes, insurance coverage in children, we don't have good data.
So I was going to add to that question, don't we at least have data? Because I noticed on your chart in here, you use national data for so many of the ages. Don't we have Denti-Cal data, at least Denti-Cal data on those children?
So most of these data are claims-based data.
Right.
So we know how many procedures we have performed, but we don't know what the disease is. If you ask me, what proportion of children have cavities, I'll have to use the 2006 data because our system doesn't capture that. On the medical side, there is an advantage. There is a reporting system. Physicians report some of the diseases. There are registries like cancer, there are surveys that are undertaken frequently, whether it is, teenage pregnancies, things like that. But when it comes to oral health, we don't have good data, especially on health outcomes, because that's the critical thing, whether we have made an improvement in the overall health. It's not so important how many procedures we performed.
Okay. So at least because 50% of children in this state are on Medi-Cal, so we can assume they're on Denti-Cal. So we at least can get a pretty good amount of data on 50% of the children, right?
Not on oral health. As I said, disease outcomes, we don't capture that in the claims data, at least now.
Okay.
Okay? So on the medical side, diabetes, right? Diabetes is reported in the claims. They know what proportion of the population has diabetes. But when it comes to oral health, the claims database doesn't capture that information.
Okay, and then I just have, because in our county, our foundation, we screen with dentists 8,500 kids, and 26% of those have urgent and emergency needs. I mean, so we get this. You had said you might mention about how is this related to what the Denti-Cal reimbursements are? Do you believe it is? And then I have one more comment on your chart about the determinants of health. I might think about adding under social and economic language barriers, because in our county, 49% of families don't speak English at home, and we're finding that is a big barrier when we're helping get them to a dentist.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's why we came up with Goal 4. It's about communication strategies and improving health literacy, and that requires, coming up with methods to address, language barriers and other barriers.
Well, and I just want to thank you for doing this. I think I'm very concerned about how our children's teeth are going to affect the rest of their lives. So thank you for this.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments or questions? Yes.
I have, of your slide presentation, the one that struck me the most is the lady that was pregnant. So I know a lot of our programs are basically, it's after the fact that, and you were bringing up that it'd be nice to get it at the pregnancy level. We all know that if we're after the fact, it costs more money to provide care and service and just to have an overall plan is like after the fact. So it struck me as, I don't know if there's research on vaccination for fluoride vaccinations to prevent future cavities. Is there companies developing that type of prenatal type I know sounds like science fiction where you get a shot or a pill. Or even the distribution of fluoride tablets systemically for young age children or by drops to prevent before it actually happens. So starting at even more a ground level, that would be probably less expensive than after the fact prevention or education. And thus the pregnant parents would be indoctrinated into fluoride treatment early because it's been given to them or it's provided for them or the injection is part of their vaccination immunology type of situation. So I don't know if that is a progressive or a futuristic idea, but I think there may be a benefit to that. So I don't know if that is.
So at the national level, Health Resources Services Administration has made this a high priority. So, and, California actually developed guidelines for oral health care during pregnancy in 2009 or 2007 or 9? Okay, around 2007. As you probably know that, when I went to dental school, I was told to postpone treatment during pregnancy. And so, this came up in New York, and New York State convened a panel of obstetricians, pediatricians, and dentists, and we came up with guidelines for oral health care during pregnancy and early childhood. And California followed the suit and published that in 2007 or so. And then at the national level, HRSA made it a high priority, and there are performance measures related to receipt of dental care during pregnancy. So, and they're funding 15 states to implement pilot projects, and California is one of them. And we have a project now in Sonoma County doing exactly like that. And if it is successful, we want to replicate in other counties as well. So linking, pregnant patients to a source of care even before they become pregnant is really ideal. But at least during pregnancy, because many of them will have dental insurance for the first time during that time. And then to give the information so they can start implementing, early care, starting, during, as soon as the first tooth erupts. And, in order to control early childhood caries, we have to address appropriate feeding habits, fluoride use, improved oral hygiene, and some of those kinds of things that parents can do if they know exactly how to do it. So that's part of the plan, to start very early.
So was that report that you don't treat pregnant women because of a legal issue? Was that a
That was the
litigation
old
issue?
one. That was the that's when I went to dental school in 1970s, right? And we tried to change that practice, and there were concerns about liability. There were concerns about spread of infection. But now we have evidence from several studies undertaken in the United States, actually clinical trials documenting that, treatment is safe during pregnancy.
Thank you.
Yes, Don?
Dr. Kumar, many of us in this room have been working for years on trying to increase access to care, and I think we've had some success, and we've certainly had our frustrations. But I just want to say that if we are the choir, sir, I think that makes you the choir director, and I hope you're ready for that hat. But personally speaking, we're all thrilled, and I'm thrilled to have you on board, and we look forward to working with you and making this state what it can be in terms of prevention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public that are in attendance for Dr. Kumar?
Copies of Dr. Kumar's presentation are located at the back table for anyone who'd like one.
Okay, with that said, Thank you very much. Appreciate your coming and spending this time with us, and thank you for the information you provided, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Same here.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very much for the opportunity.
Just for planning purposes, we plan on taking a lunch break beginning at 12:30 for 1 hour, from 12:30 to 1:30. So we'll try to make that happen as timely as we can, okay? Moving on in our agenda, agenda item number 6, the budget report, and I believe Sarah Wallace is going to present that to us.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Wallace. I'm the Assistant Executive Officer for the board. Today I'm going to be presenting our budget report. This report focuses on the expenditures as of the fourth quarter of the last fiscal year, which was 2015 and 16. We've not yet quite gotten the final expenditure report for which is called our FM13 for the closeout of the year. So this was based on the expenditure reports from June. And so for the fourth quarter, the expenditures for the dentistry fund, we spent approximately $5.4 million on personnel services and $5.6 million for operating expenses and equipment during our total fiscal year of 2015-16. For comparison purposes, the year prior, we spent approximately 50% on personnel and 50% on expenditures. So we're pretty much on point. We are looking at insolvency in fiscal year 2018-19, which we've all known about, and that's why we're promulgating the regulation. So the fund condition does show that we are looking at a deficit of 2.3 months in reserve in fiscal year 2018-19. On the state dental assisting fund, you will see that the board spent approximately $2 million or 80% of its appropriation for fiscal year 15-16, and of that amount, approximately $653,000 of the expenditures were for personnel services, and $1.4 million were dedicated to operational expenses and equipment. For comparison purposes, approximately 30% of last year's budget expenditures were for personnel, and 55% of the expenditures were for OE&E. So we are in a continual pattern here. Again, we are also looking at a fund deficit in the state dental assistant fund. And if you look at your fund condition included in your board packet, again, in fiscal year 2018-19, we were looking at a fund deficit of 2.4 months in reserve. And we are promulgating the regulations right now for the state dentistry assistant fund. We've asked for updated Breeze cost, as we've shared at the previous board meeting. They're still working on getting us those numbers, and so I've just shared the same numbers that were provided at the May meeting. I don't have anything updated as of right now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public in attendance? Okay, with that said, thank you very much. At this point in time, we are bringing agenda item number 20, which is almost at the end of your book, up to this point. Okay. So if you can turn to that. And Lucy will walk us through this, okay?
Can everybody hear me? Okay. So my name is Lucine Sarkissian. I'm the Legislative and Regulatory Analyst for the Dental Board. And so as a result of the May 2016 board meeting, staff initiated the rulemaking for the fee increase. We submitted the documents to the Office of Administrative Law on June 14th, which started our 45-day comment period on June 24th until August 8th, 2016. A regulatory hearing was held, and we did not receive verbal or written comments during the hearing, but however, we did receive comments, written comments from the California Dental Association and a joint letter from the Dental Assisting Association, such as the Foundation for Allied Dental Education, Inc., the California Association of Dental Assisting Teachers, Inc., Incorporation, the California Dental Assistants Association, and the Extended Functions Dental Assistant Association. And so in the packets that you have, it's kind of divided between the two letters that we received. First one, kind of addressing the comments from the California Dental Association regarding their concern about the fictitious name permit renewal being modified possibly from $650 to the recommended that of the subcommittee. And so staff did further research, and staff recommends that the board accept the CDA's comment to establish the fee for a fictitious name permit renewal at $325, since it's typically has been half the initial fee, half the licensing initial fee. And so as a result, we would request that the board modify the proposed language to accept that recommendation. And then the second part is the comments received from the dental assisting.
Lucy?
Sorry.
I think at this point in time, we should have the board make a vote on the recommendation that you made regarding the CDA's comments, okay? Before we go to the next.
Okay.
Okay, so you understand the comments that CDA has requested. Do we have a motion to accept the staff's recommendation? You have a question?
Yeah, so is the comment just that historically it's been half of the registration fee, and so that's the reason that they want it to be half the fee still?
Oh, it was kind of an oversight on staff's part. It's typically half the renewal, or half the initial fee, and so it should not have been $650. It should have been $325.
Okay, so that was because I mean, obviously, a lot of the numbers were changing, and I don't have them, I don't remember all the details, but I know a lot of it was based on the costs. So you're saying that that's not the case in this one, that we didn't intend to recommend
Correct.
$650? Okay,
Correct.
I didn't get that,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Again, staff has a recommendation before the board to, regarding the comments made by CDA regarding setting the fictitious name permit at $325. What I would like to do at this point in time is to entertain a motion regarding this recommendation. Okay, it's moved that the recommendation be approved. Okay, do we have a second? Dr. Lay? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Any comments or questions from the public in attendance? Saying so, could we read the roll call vote?
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai?
Yes.
Lay? McKenzie?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Witcher?
Yes.
Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, Lucy, and we will take each one of these as an individual item.
Okay. And so the next letter we received were from the dental assisting associations. And so they expressed concern about the proposed rulemaking for the fees. And in the memo, they had addressed concerns that the program and course applications fees were not increased, and they proposed that those fees be increased in order to support the registered dental assisting and the registered dental assisting and extended functions licensing and permitting fees. Also, they had commented that the regulatory language be consistent between sections 1021 and 1022 relating to terms such as fees, dental assisting, and then possibly changing dental auxiliaries and using initial approval. And then they also commented that recent statutory changes provide the board the authority to revisit programs and courses or ask such programs and courses to reapply for continued approval in order to obtain fees. And so what we did is we divided the two sections, 1021 and 1022 of the regulations. And so the first portion of the recommendation was that they recommended the addition of the word fee and other various technical grammatical amendments throughout section 1021, as well as addition of 2 fees One being the law and ethics reexamination fee of $100, and another fee which is $125 for the issuance of the replacement pocket license replacement and wall certificate and similar things. And so staff kind of reviewed the recommendation, and at this time, staff recommends that the recommendations to Section 1021 be rejected because rationale and justification are necessary for each proposed amendment in order to comply with the legal review standards and proposing such regulations. So since neither justification and rationale were provided in the attached letter, staff recommends that we reject the proposal. And then kind of in addition, there is no rationale provided for the law and ethics reexamination fee, as well as why the fee should be $100. And so it would be duplicative to have the candidate reapply for eligibility when they're doing that for the law and ethics examination already. And so at this time, staff recommends that we reject the recommendation for Section 1021 that was provided.
So staff has recommended rejection of those comments. Do we have a motion in that matter? So moved. Moved and seconded to reject the comments that were recently discussed.
Who was the second?
Dr. Wu. Dr. Wu was the second, right? Okay, yes.
Could we postpone this just for a little bit, to give you some time to read and try to understand this issue a little bit more? Because, I mean, we had an explanation, but it's pretty quick, and now that we have the background.
This one was not changed. Right, this was in your board packet.
Okay. The board packets were mailed out 2 weeks ago. The hearing happened last Monday, and so on Friday, all board members were emailed this information that's included in your board packets. And it was also posted on our website. And so the only change between that version and then today is one staff recommendation that we're moving forward regarding the OCSV, but everything else had been previously provided to the board members.
Does that satisfy you, Tom, or do you want a couple of minutes to take a look at it?
I'm going to make a recommendation. I recommend that we put this back over to tomorrow to allow board members the opportunity to review the information that was mailed out prior to today. Okay? So we'll put that back on the agenda tomorrow. And we'll pick it up where we've left off. Is that amenable to everybody?
We all agree. Fantastic. Okay. All right, moving on. Now we're going to item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding 2017 dental board meeting dates. Okay.
Good
And I
morning, I'm
believe-
Linda Byers, the Executive Assistant for the Dental Board of California. I've put together a calendar in the back that also includes all of association dates for their meetings, and I have suggested meeting dates that do not interfere with any of those dates, also to keep them evenly spread apart.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So I'm assuming we can pick up our phones now because we're all checking our calendars.
Everybody, they're checking their telephones to get their access to their personal calendars. So.
Okay.
What is the Hilton Wi-Fi?
Dental, in here it's dental, all lowercase.
Yeah. Why don't we take the February, March meeting first? Does anybody have a conflict with that? Okay, we do.
Yeah, I have a conflict on March 3rd.
March 3rd?
I have a conflict with that, it's the Alumni Association meeting at UOP.
Okay, on the March the 3rd?
Second
Okay,
and third,
So
yeah.
it seems like March the 3rd doesn't
Yeah.
work. Anybody have any problems with February 23 and 4? Okay. Okay, so let's at least in a strong pencil, let's pencil that one in, okay? A bold pencil. All right. How about the May? Any conflicts with May?
Yeah, I actually happen to have conflicts with both the 12th and the 19th.
Ooh.
But I could make probably half a day. I mean, so I don't know where the location is, but I'd probably, if it's on those, I'd just have to leave early, either the 12th or the 19th.
Where do we usually meet in May?
Typically, we,
In San Francisco?
last year, we held it in Los Angeles in May, and it's worked out better for scheduling and for
Right.
hotels. I'd like to try to keep it in Los Angeles in May.
I have a conflict on the 17th. I have a conflict with the 18th and the 19th. My son's graduating, so,
Okay.
since I paid for it.
You're going.
Yeah, I'm going.
Sounds like 18 and 19 is not a good plan. Okay. How many people with heartburn on 11 and 12 do we have? Yeah, I know. But you have conflicts with 11 and 12? Okay. So majority are okay with 11 and 12? Okay. Let's take that one for now. Okay. Going to August, 3rd and 4th, or 10th and 11th?
Difficult one here. So the 10th and the 11th work. The 3rd and the 4th, I also have problems on the 4th again. So.
Okay. Anybody have any problem with the 10th and 11th? That seemed to be an okay? That one's okay with you, Meredith? Okay, let's take it while we have the chance. Okay,
So it's the 10th and 11th?
10th and 11th, okay, then November?
So the 2nd and 3rd work, and then on the 10th, I have an issue on the
Okay,
10th.
we have a problem with 9 and 10. Anybody have a
She's
problem
popular.
with 2 and 3?
wait.
November 2nd and 3rd.
Sorry, I gotta get there.
Any members of the public have a problem? I mean, let's please everybody while we're at it here, okay? All right, so, you're out. So we're looking at November 2 and 3. Okay?
And
All right.
what was the February, March date?
February, March was 23-4.
And the May was 11th and 12th?
11, 12. Okay. Are we happy? If you're happy, let's show it, clap your hands. Okay. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 8.
Okay, my name is Karen Fisher, and I'm the Executive Officer of the Dental Board. I'm just going to give you a brief update on our strategic planning session that we have already begun. So most of the board members were contacted, as well as council members, by telephone from Solid staff, and they're in the process of compiling that information now, and we'll be bringing it back to the board for future discussions. We had very good comments, according to the Solid staff, and we appreciate you taking the time. I know that strategic planning can be very thought-provoking, but from what I understand, their interviews explained questions pretty well, and we got some good data that we'll be able to look at moving forward. There were 3 focus groups being held among our staff. Typically, boards actually don't involve their staff in this. We thought we'd try it as a attest. And I think that we're going to be getting good information from the staff also. Hopefully, they appreciated the opportunity to participate in this process, and we'll be bringing that information forward. In fact, based on what the staff has given us, and it's an opportunity for them to let us know what they're not happy with, what they are happy with. And so we're going to be taking that information, and while we'll be building it into a high-level strategic plan overall in terms of organizational development, what Solid recommended to my management team was that we actually put a workforce engagement plan together. So among the many other things that we're in the midst of doing, the management team is going to be meeting with Solid very soon to start to develop this workforce engagement plan. We'll be reporting to you on that plan at future board meetings. But getting back to our strategic planning session, so the information is being gathered and will be produced in a report that we're going to be discussing in Sacramento on October 13th and 14th. I had previously sent out an email to board members and council members letting them know of these dates, and hopefully we will be getting information that you are available to come to Sacramento and participate in this important evaluation. So again, October 13th and 14th, it's a Thursday and Friday. It'll be held at HQ2 headquarters, which we've had a board meeting there before. We'll be sending out additional information, and Linda will be sending out a confirmation letter to ensure we do have a quorum for that meeting. I would appreciate you all trying to clear your calendars for that and participating in that.
Sorry, Karen, can you say the dates again? I'm still trying to put in the last dates, so.
Yeah, it's
13, 14?
October 13th and 14th. And you'll see that it's identified in this memo that we have before us on Agenda Item 8 as a reminder, so it's there in your packet.
And I just want to take a moment to tell you how much I appreciate and agree with your inclusion of the staff into the strategic planning process. Obviously, we'd be sunk if it wasn't for staff, and they're very much a part of our process. And for the planning, I think it's imperative that we have staff input to maximize the efficiency of our board.
I also wanted to bring up this time that I do appreciate your participation in this process. I know that it comes on top of what has been a very busy year for board members. You've been inundated with, a lot of disciplinary decisions to read, as well as our occupational analysis for both the registered dental assisting profession as well as the EFs. And among other things, as you know, we have the working document of the pediatric anesthesia that we'll be discussing tomorrow. So we've worked y'all pretty hard this year. So I'm prefacing this with my apologies, but you're doing fabulous work, and while I can get it out of you, I'm going to. So I think as we pursue these projects, that we're doing it together, and we're marking a lot of things off of the list. So in December, I'll be giving you a recap of essentially how much we really did this year, and I think you'll be surprised. Typically, we tend to get over a hurdle and then forget what we've done. And so we'll just keep the momentum going and hopefully be able to essentially set the course or the roadmap for the board for the next 4 years. So again, appreciate your participation in this. Are there any questions? Barring any unforeseen delays, we should actually have a formal plan to be brought to the December meeting for adoption. That's what we're, at this point, hoping to do.
So, Dr. Morrow, okay, I'm gonna be difficult. Can we go back to the dates? I messed up one of them. The August meeting, I misread my own notes and I actually swapped them. So I don't think we discussed the 3rd and 4th. I don't know if anyone else had conflicts on the 3rd and 4th, but I actually have a bit of an issue on the 10th and the 11th, not the 3rd and the 4th, so.
We have a reversal.
I'm sorry, yeah,
That's
I
okay.
know.
That's okay. We'll make you pay for it later.
I'm sure you will, yeah. As I was putting it in my calendar, I went, oh.
So it's 10 and 11 that we have a problem with. Does anybody that Meredith has a problem with, does anybody have a problem with the 3rd and 4th?
I do.
Who does? You do, 3rd and 4th.
That's
Flip
okay.
a coin.
So, yeah, then you can flip a coin, and it's far enough in advance, I might be able to fix that one, but.
Okay. Let's leave it as it is right now. See what you can do with that, okay? Appreciate it. Thanks.
So what's the date? Okay.
Oh, it's remaining 10 and 11 for now, okay? All right, good. Okay, moving on with agenda item number 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Any public comments? On agenda item 8, right. Okay. With none said, let's move on to agenda item 9. There have been some revisions to our operating manual for the board, so these are, have been for you ahead of time for review and discussion.
So pretty much the comments that were taken at the May meeting have been incorporated, but what you might notice is that we have made it the Dental Board of California Policy and Procedure Manual, so we've expanded it beyond just board members, but it also now includes council and committee members. Because we do have committees that are outside of this board. We have the Elective Facial Cosmetic Permit Committee, the Diversion Evaluation, and so all of our key people then will fall under this. So pretty much everything was incorporated. We actually took out the discussion that seemed to be unclear about the two-person Bagley-Keene. We are going to rely on board member orientation to impress that point upon everyone. And so I don't think we need to reiterate that in the policy and procedure manual at this time. I would like to draw your attention to page 11 of the working, the hard copy. I'm not sure what page it is in electronic copy. Something has come up regarding the first red sentence under board election of officers. It says board members serving their grace period are not eligible for officer or chair of a standing committee. I'm asking that this be struck at this point. The reason why is at the end of December, we will have 6 or 7 members that go into grace period. And that may put us in a bit of a bind moving forward with committees or officers. I think that we have outlined what a succession plan would be in the event that somebody is either removed from office or can no longer serve. So I'm asking for discussion on the ability to remove that section. Now, there's a strong possibility that 4 of the members whose terms will expire at the end of the year, if they're interested in seeking a second term, would be reappointed. We'll be talking about that. I'll be calling you individually and talking to you about that and what that process is. But we have 2 current vacancies now with the departure of Drs. Dominicis and Casagrande. Member Dawson, Forsyth, Lai, Stewart, and Wu will either be reappointed or replaced, but will essentially be in a grace period starting January 1st, as will Ms. Burton and Mr. Afriat. So taking that under consideration, we would like to hear a discussion on this particular part of the policy and procedure manual.
Yes, Meredith.
So I'll just say, when I first read that, I thought by grace period, it wasn't referring to the time that you're waiting to see if you can be reappointed, which I also realize is a grace period. But I was thinking of it more as, you know, even if you've already, isn't it true that even if you've already served 2 terms, you can take 1 year at kind of at the end? And so that is the one that I guess I had been thinking of as more the, I don't know, the
Yeah, my
end-to-end grace period.
my
But I guess
understand-
it's sort of the same thing. But Yeah.
My understanding is that the grace year is like a fifth year, okay?
Right,
But you cannot do it, or you might be replaced during that fifth year. That's up to the governor. But in essence, if we each took our grace year, we would be serving 10 years instead of 8. It'd be 2, 5.
Because I think it doesn't add on. I don't think, like,
I
if
think
you
at
went
the
for a
end of
second
the-
term, it doesn't add on a year.
Okay.
That would just be considered part of your second
But
term.
anyway,
So I think you could get 9.
The
but
grace
yeah.
year is the year following when your appointment terminates. So that's what we're referring to as the grace year, right?
And I believe this came up because actually one of our board members was elected to either secretary or vice president and did not get appointed to a second term. Okay, so the grace period can be a couple of times during your terms.
So the issue for discussion and approval or rejection is that at this point in time anyway, that we strike that change or that edit item, board members serving their grace period are not eligible for officer or chair of standing committees. Strike that from this version for the purposes that, and the concerns that Karen just mentioned. So is there any question? Did everybody understand what we're asking? Okay. I would love to entertain a motion for that. Okay.
I'll
it was
second.
Moved by Dr. Stewart. Seconded by, Judy beat you to it. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, and you'll call a roll call.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. Comments from the public, thank you.
Are we just voting on the removal of this?
Yes. Okay,
Morrow's yes, Forsythe, yes. Burton?
Aye.
Chappelle Ingram? Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
it's been approved that item be removed from the manual. Is there any other discussion or concern regarding editorial changes that have been suggested? Yes.
On page 7, just a point of clarification, maybe you could educate me on this. In the red section, last paragraph, effective July 1, 2016, surrenders and revocations are automatically accepted by the executive officer without board member vote. I think, isn't that stipulated surrenders and revocations? I don't know if
You're
that
right.
matters, but
It's stipulated surrenders.
I think that makes a little bit of a difference.
Should it say stipulated surrenders and not just surrenders?
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is that item should read, effective July 1, 2016, stipulated surrenders and revocations are automatically accepted.
It is stipulated.
We have a family crisis going on here.
That's true. But that would be a voluntary surrender. But it would have to be stipulated if they surrender.
Okay, who won that one? Okay. Spencer won that one, okay.
The reason I bring that up is surrenders and revocations usually come to the board for a decision, except for stipulated surrenders.
That's right.
Okay, so that's been edited to read stipulated surrenders.
Just as a reminder, this was the reg package that essentially went through the process last year and became effective July 1st of 2016. So that's why we've included it.
Any other comments or questions?
And if there aren't any more comments or questions, they can just accept it as revised.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the members in attendance, public members in attendance? Okay.
And that's the
Then-
entire manual.
Right. I would entertain a motion to accept the manual, entire manual as amended, so we can move forward. Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
I think if we be helpful as people are making their motion, if they would give a name, because I'm watching our vice president, secretary in residence here struggling with this. So if you would just, when you make your motion, give a name.
All right, did we get those? We got those, okay. All right. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the manual as amended. Okay, any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Take the roll call vote, please.
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle? Ingram? Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you, members.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, and I think Karen will carry that one through.
This is the first time we've actually had to go through something like this. So in March, the board appointed Dr. Chavez as a public member of the Southern Deck. And you can read essentially in our memo what happened. So she was non-responsive to actually completing her paperwork and moving forward. So legal counsel has advised that first the board would need to withdraw her appointment. And so Spencer, do we want to move that first and then go on to have Dr. Stewart, who's the diversion and liaison, be able to give a report on the new candidate?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any comments or questions from members of the public in attendance? With that said, will you call the roll vote?
Morrow?
Yes.
Oh,
Before you do that, this could be, this was just her reason, but are there circumstances where someone who, okay. Oh, the question I was going to ask was about being on disability and this marvelous pay interfering with that.
She was concerned that somehow serving would interfere with her disability retirement. I only suggested that she needed to seek advice from the appropriate person, either her accountant or legal people, to be able to determine that. So we kept the door open for obviously a long time to see whether or not she would respond back, and she didn't.
Okay.
So there were numerous attempts to contact her by phone, by email, and by regular mail. So.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, moving on, agenda item number 11.
oh, we go ahead and take the vote.
I'm sorry, we didn't take the vote?
Nope.
Okay, let's call the vote. Okay.
So this is the withdrawal of Chavez. Okay, Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram? Yes. Dawson? King? Yes. Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Yes. Stewart? Yes. Witcher? Yes. Wu? Motion carries.
Now, the second part is that we do have another candidate who's interested in doing the replacement, and this is where we hand it over to Dr. Stewart, who is able to have a telephone interview.
Yeah, it was my great pleasure to have a telephone conversation with Dr. John Philip Bradford. And again, it just strikes me how dedicated these folks are on the deck and what a service they're providing to the state of California. He spoke about the mission of the deck and how he understands the primary mission is to protect the public. Secondarily, maintain the integrity of the profession, and then also help the person who's looking for recovery. He spoke about the importance of a legitimate personal connection that helped him in his search for sobriety, and he spoke about the importance of mentorship with Curtis Vixie, and Bottom line is that I think that we have another candidate who understands the process well, is passionate about serving, and he gets my full recommendation to this board.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. So the issue here now is one of approval of Dr. John Philip Bradford as a member of the Southern DEC. So do we have a motion in that regards? Who was?
No, yeah, Mackenzie to accept, or Mackenzie to second.
Who first?
Okay, Wu seconded and McKenzie. Okay. Good, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any questions or discussion from the members of the public in attendance? Okay, will you please call a roll vote?
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram? Dawson? King? Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Dr. President, if I may ask for a point of personal privilege at this point to recognize somebody who has come into the meeting?
Definitely.
Okay. Ann, I'd like to recognize you. So Ann Hawley is the new Deputy Appointment Secretary in the Governor's Office. She is, I'll say, coming behind Sonia. So she's filling in behind Sonia. Sonia received, well, she's changed jobs, essentially. She's gone over to work for the Department of Motor Vehicles as their director over there. So as I've spoken briefly with, for those of you who are going into grace period, you and I will have discussions, and then eventually you're going to be having discussions with Ann. And so welcome, Ann. I hope you'll be able to stick around so that we can meet you individually, and thank you for attending. So when we adjourn for lunch, board members, if you'd like to, one by one or whatever.
Yeah, don't gang up on her.
Yeah, don't gang up on her, but, you know, introduce yourselves and we can take it from there. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Ann. Glad you were able to come and spend some time with us today. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11. I think that Sarah is going to manage this.
Good morning, Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. So as you all know, the board's newest pathway to licensure is the portfolio examination within the California dental schools. As part of the legislation that was enacted, a requirement was put in place that the board needs to determine whether or not the portfolio examination meets the requirements of Business and Professions Code Section 139. And if it determines that the portfolio exam fails to meet those requirements, that the portfolio exam could cease to be implemented and would no longer be an option for applicants. This report is due to the legislature by December 1st, 2016. And so staff has compiled information and has put together a rough draft report for the board's review at this meeting so that we would be ready to put together the report by the due date by December. And so the report was included in your board meeting packets. I would like to note that the report also includes 5 attachments that we did not include as the hard copies in the board meeting materials because they were pretty lengthy. And so in an effort to save paper resources, they were made available electronically on the board website. They are all reports that you've seen previously, including the alternative pathways for initial licensure for general dentists that was created by Comira in February of 2009, which was followed by the portfolio examination to qualify for California dental licensure that was presented in December 2009, and those were used as the basis to support seeking an author for Assembly Bill 1524, which put portfolio into action. We also included the development and validation of a portfolio exam for initial dental licensure, which was prepared by PSI after the completion of the bill so that you could use it as the document relied upon for the development of the regulations. And then, of course, another attachment was the actual regulations themselves, which became effective in November of 2014. The report, I know you've probably all had an opportunity to review. A lot of the information we already had available. It was included as part of the regulatory file. And we've also included some information regarding its implementation after the promulgation of the regulations, as well as statistical information from 2015 and 2016. 2016 statistics will be inserted. Staff is still in the process of processing the applications. I believe we have received 30 applications. 29 of those have been licensed, and there's one applicant that's waiting to complete one clinical experience, and then they'll be approved as well. So they should either be approved this week or next week is the expectation. So far we have a 100% pass rate with portfolio. And so staff is recommending that the board certify that the portfolio examination pathway to dental licensure is in compliance with BMP Code Section 139 and recommend the continuance of the pathway.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate that. I think that the portfolio pathway is alive and growing, let's put it that way, okay? And I think what we're needing at this point is that the dental board continues to support that process of licensure, that we continue to move forward with that. So this would require a motion. If someone would like to make that motion and second it, then we can have more detailed discussion.
Is that motion approved?
Okay, moved and seconded. Do we have any more discussion on the portfolio exam itself?
Sorry.
It would be helpful for me to hear from some of our board members that are actually in the dental schools and to give me a sense of what they're hearing from the students and in terms of are they excited about the pathway? Are there barriers that are coming up, or just a sense of that?
I think we have the opportunity to have that discussion under the examinations tab. Okay?
Yeah, we will discuss that. It'll be under a different item, okay? Yes,
Is
Rob?
this, Sarah, is this information distributed to the dental schools as well?
The report will be distributed to the dental schools at this point. It's
the
a
dean?
draft for the board's review.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Any comments or questions from members of the public in attendance? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that the dental board certify that the portfolio examination is meeting the requirements and to be continued. Can you do the vote?
It's to approve the report.
I'm sorry?
To approve the report.
To approve the report. Okay, thank you.
I have one last comment, it's okay? Can I have a comment on that?
Sure.
Is that distributed to ADA and CDA as well? Can we have a copy sent to CDA and ADA?
The report was available on the board website as part of the
okay.
public meeting materials, yes.
Okay, we can call the roll.
Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram? Dawson? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Motion carries.
Order. We'll pick up where we left off. I think we will be on agenda item 12, examinations. I think that's where we are. Oh, and I have that, oh, Karen. Are you going to be doing 12, or do you want me to do it? think we have a representative from REB.
I think, so 12 is the report from Western Regional Examination Board. Did we have a representative attend the meeting? Dr. Lay, did you attend?
Okay, so I attended the Dental Examination Review Board, which is part of REB, on June 24th in Austin. So the meeting, was a shorter meeting than usual. We had an ADA representative that came to the meeting to talk about the same thing that we had talked about at our previous meeting. There is, about the letter, speaking on, basically saying that all regional boards are equal and that all the state boards should be accepting, all regional boards. So there was a discussion on that. I did bring up to the ADA trustee who was there that in their endorsement, for all the regional boards to be, portable, portfolio from California should also be part of it because it was not in the letter. Also, there was the announcement of the new chair for the REB. The new president will be Dr. Norm Magnuson, and then the chair-elect will be Dr. Dale Chamberlain. So they had an election there. Each state representative basically gave the board the updates on what's going on in their state, and it was really interesting to hear that every state board that was present was basically faced with the same challenges as we are. Scope of practice, anesthesia requirements, so things like that. So it was a common thread, among the members. For the very first time, REB instituted the provisional acceptance of patients. Not all schools participated in that program. What that means is that the candidates could actually, submit the x-rays of the patients for provisional acceptance. In advance. So when they show up for the exam, the patients were accepted. The patients didn't have to go through the whole process of being checked by the REB examiner. So again, not all schools participated. For the candidates who do not attend that school, they wouldn't be able to have that option. So that was the first year that they implemented that. But, a lot of the feedback from the candidates is that they really liked it, and 99% of them who used it recommended that future candidates, to use the provisional acceptance if it is made available to them. And I think that's all that I have to report. Now, I know Dr. Tippett is here from REB, and I don't know if he would like to add anything to the report, but I think he's here as a resource, he said, so. So that concludes my report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Nathaniel Tippett. I'm the current chair of REB, and I'm here strictly on having been sent here by leadership as a resource, or if y'all have any questions or comments that I can carry back to the REB leadership. So I really have no comment. I think that everything has gone quite smoothly over the last 2 years that I've been attending y'all. I'm starting to feel like a California board member. It's about the same size as Texas, but y'all talk different. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know. I would say the ADA rep that the doctor was referring to, as you well know, there's a lot of conflict now between the 5 regional agencies and the goals and desires of the American Dental Association. They want no live patients on the exam. They prefer a single exam, et cetera, et cetera. Reb, as a physician, just so I can point it out, we believe that nothing is as effective as competition. I think it's great to have portfolio. I think it's great to have PG1. I think it's great to have 5, or certainly 3 to 5 regional exams. That's what keeps us sharp. Monopolies, in my judgment, have never been particularly productive. And I know these are very controversial views that different people have. We're very strong on states' rights. I think that California, for example, has the right and the obligation to choose whatever examination and whatever pathway that y'all choose to have. Certainly don't like the idea that it's going to be dictated to all of us. But so that being said, we're real happy with our relationship with California. And if I was going to be around longer, I'd teach y'all to talk right. Any questions at all?
Thank you very much for coming and joining us. You're a familiar face to us all. I've been here a number of times. And we're getting to, at least I'm getting to the point at which you don't have an accent anymore. I mean, I can understand what you're saying now.
I know, I guess I married a New Yorker. You ought to hear her. It's been my privilege to have met and spoken with most of you, and as I say, we have thoroughly enjoyed our relationship with California and look up to California as an innovator. It's my personal opinion the portfolio is going to be a very innovative and a developing pathway to licensure. And that's the beauty of the competition. So it's been my privilege, and if I can ever clarify anything or do anything for any of you, let me know.
Thank you very much. Any board members have any questions or comments for gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything we can do for you?
I think I'm in pretty good shape unless you can lay fence line. I got about...
I've done it before, but no.
Oh, man, that's brutal, isn't it? No, I'm real pleased with, we were obviously, as I think Casagrande had said one time, a shotgun wedding. And I'm real pleased how it has worked out. And I have no complaints. I've been treated very fairly, and I've learned a lot being in your presence.
Were you here this morning? Did you hear Dr. Kumar this morning?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And he gave a real shout out to Texas and what you are doing in terms of children's health. It's good for you.
Well, good.
Good for you.
Well, thank you all very much. My pleasure.
I have a question. I have a question. What are you doing in Texas that is working with children's dental health?
We have we had a very large Title 19 program for a while, but that's pretty much given way. And now we're very active with CHIPS and very active with Medicaid. Texas is very much like California in the sense that we share a common border, and we have a huge Hispanic population and immigrant population that at times has been very challenging to deliver dental services because we have 254 counties. We're even bigger than y'all landmass-wise, but many of these counties don't even have dentists in them. So ours is really, Texas now licenses many more dentists, Ms. Burton, than we graduate. We graduate about 350, 380, something like that. Nowhere near what y'all do. We have 3 schools as opposed to your 5 or 6. But we're licensing a lot more than that because there's a lot of people moving down. both for the job opportunities that Houston and Dallas and whatnot offer. But it's a problem with distribution, and I'm sure you all tolerate the same thing. So there's many children in Texas that are challenged in terms of getting the dental services delivered to them. And the State Board in Texas, as well as Health and Human Services, are looking at things to answer your questions, such as forgiveness or abatement of some of the loans if they go to a particular area for a particular period of time. And hopefully that they'll be able to resolve that a little bit in the future. It's a problem.
We have CHIPS also. Will you be applying for the 1115 waiver?
You know, I don't know that because I'm not state board anymore. It's been 10 years since I was chair of the board, so I don't know. I stay in touch with it, and I would say yes, but I'm not an authority on that, and I really can't speak for them. But I do know they're doing their best to address it. However, the Texas board just got hammered by sunset, so they're having a bunch of issues there, too, so.
Well, we'll miss you.
Well,
We'll
I'll
miss you.
miss y'all. Miss y'all. It's a beautiful state. San Diego, I've never been to, or Sacramento until I came here, and beautiful places, really. Not as pretty as Belleville, Texas, but close.
Very much. Enjoyed having you here.
Dr. Moore, may I make one correction, if I could say so? Yeah. Earlier, I was saying that Dr. Norm Magnuson and Dr. Dale Chamberlain, as chair and president-elect, it's not for RAP. I apologize to Dr. Tippett. It's actually for the Dental Examination Review Board, which is a component of RAP. Dr. Tippett is actually chair of RAP, so I just want to make that clarification. I think I misspoke there. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next portion of this report, which has to do with our portfolio pathway to licensure. And it's very exciting what's going on throughout the country. We're continuing to get inquiries from other states. Doctors Morrow and Wu can update you on some of the recent discussions that they've been involved in. So I'll hand it off to them in just a minute. I just want to say, though, that our portfolio program here in California seems to be ramping up. I'm pleased to announce that Loma Linda is actively in the program now and is in the process of getting their examiners certified and sending us lists. And we'll now need to work on UCLA and Western to see if we can bring them along, and then to probably also assist University of Southern California with whether or not we can increase their numbers. But it's taking on, and we're hoping that because we're getting national recognition, that will give the 6 dental schools in California the incentive to work toward, along with the board, to make this a successful pathway to licensure. So at that, I'll hand it off to Drs. Wu and Morrow to sort of team report on the things that they've been involved with since the last meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask Dr. Wu to step in right now. Dr. Wu is the chair of our examination committee for the board, and she's actively involved in the portfolio process at the University of Pacific. And so and she and I had worked together with a teleconference recently with the Iowa Dental Board regarding portfolio. So do you want to share some of that?
So Dr. Morrow and I spoke with both Iowa and with Kentucky. Kentucky has accepted the portfolio, and Iowa's coming along with that also. I also wanted to talk about, Karen Fisher and I have spoken about getting together with some of the Southern California schools to get them more on board with the portfolio. One of my ideas was to actually have a focal point or a meeting, as we used to do when the California board used to kind of work closely when we used to administer the exam to the schools. Right now, I'm trying to just individually ask what hurdles each school faces when they go to administer the exam, and they are very small at this time, and we're ironing them out quite well. And I would just think that more students would we would get more candidates if the portability issue was a little bit greater. So, because as you know, the portfolio is only in California at this point in time, as opposed to the REB, which is in a lot of states. So I think that's why we don't have as many students opting for it at this time. So maybe we can have a meeting with the schools sometime in the future too to move that along, just to improve the communication about facilitating the exam itself.
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Wu has said, but, I will just add that one of the issues with the schools I see is that obviously, our curriculum is very crowded as it is. Our time constraints are virtually, overwhelming to a lot of our faculty, and adding another dimension, which the portfolio is, and we would like to say it's not going to change anything, but it does change some things. It is, and depending on where the schools are right now with their curriculum change, we've had to change our code because it says that our candidates for licensure in California have to pass Part 1 and Part 2 of the National Board written exams. Coming in 2017, there will no longer be a Part 1 and Part 2 written National Board exams. It will be all one examination integrated with basic sciences, which are the Part 1 exam, and then clinical sciences, which is the Part 2. Now there's going to be one examination, integrated basic science and clinical, all given in the students' last year of their education. So we are now in the process of changing our curriculum sequence, because previously we were spoiled with the ability to give our basic sciences the first 2 years, take an examination on that, and then move on to the clinical sciences. We can't give students some information, detailed information about basic sciences and expect in 2 years and expect them to retain that for another 2 years and then pass an examination with high scores. So we're looking at it, as all schools are, looking at curriculum sequencing so that we can better meet our needs to meet that examination process. So there's a lot of things going on in dental education right now, and the schools are pretty busy. So they're coming on, and I think it's a process that's starting to gain momentum. I would just say and add too, we received a written communication from the dental board, the Iowa Dental Board, that after our teleconference that we had with them, that they approved initiating the rulemaking process for Iowa to accept the results of the portfolio examination as meeting their licensure requirements in Iowa for a clinical examination. And that's good news. So when that happens, that will add 3 states then other than California. It will be Colorado, Kentucky, and then Iowa. I was invited to and have accepted the opportunity to meet in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in September with the American Student Dental Association group there representing student representatives from all of the dental schools in the southeastern part of the United States. And I will be meeting with them and giving them information. They requested information regarding the portfolio exam. Now, the American Student Dental Association has a strong voice, and it's an important voice for us to listen to because they are our future. And they're interested in the portfolio examination, and when they start getting interested in something, you watch out because the American Student Dental Association representatives in my school, and maybe yours too, they have an open door to the dean, and they make things happen. So it's a good group to meet with, and I'm looking forward to meeting with them.
So I'm just curious, I think because it's going so well, do you have to think about what's going to happen when you get more requests? Because there's other states that may say, hey, can you come out and tell us about this? I mean, I'm just kind of wondering. Yeah, I know we're hoping that, but I mean, is there a way that that's all handled?
I'm having a new business card printed. It says, have suitcase, will travel.
Well, I said we should patent or get royalties on this. But anyway, I just was wondering how you handle if you get, say, 5 state boards asking, can you come out and speak about this? Or am I overly asking a question that we don't have to worry about.
I guess I should be imagining that happening.
Uh-huh.
I haven't quite gotten to imagining that happening yet, so I mean, they're trickling in. But I think that with every state that it inquires, we can say, well, it is portable now to Kentucky, Colorado, Iowa. So we're just going to play it by ear and see what happens.
Because I think I read even in Canada, parts of Canada, maybe, did I read that right? That they're using Portfolio. I thought I read it in here.
Canadian clinical licensing examination is one examination that is accepted by all provinces in Canada. That examination is non-patient-based examination. It is what is referred to as a objective structured clinical examination, where there is not a patient that they have to do anything to. That is an invasive procedure. They might need to take vital signs on a patient or something of that type, but they are not required to do any dental procedure on any of their patients. And that's one license that is accepted by all provinces.
Okay.
Add that Minnesota has agreed to accept that Canadian examination for licensure in their state.
That concludes my report.
Moving on. Item number 13, licensure certification and permits, review of the dental licensure permit statistics, and I think Sarah has that.
Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. I'd like to just take a quick moment and introduce our new licensing unit manager for the DDS unit. Bernal Baba is in the back of the audience. And so he took over in March, and he's been learning the processes so far. So review of dental licensure and permit statistics. We are still learning the reporting system. So Breeze launched in January, and we were using their reporting system, but the department actually was able to develop another reporting tool. And so we're learning the subtle nuances of that reporting tool now. And so while we hope to be able to provide more trend analysis in the future, as we're learning this, we're right now just in raw data at this point. So there is an updated memo that I believe Linda's going to be distributing. Did you already distribute it? So in your board meeting packets, it's the same as what was previously included in your board meeting packet, with the exception of the new memo details the total licenses issued per pathway in 2016 now. So you have that for references purposes. We're upwards of having 38,000 active DDS licenses in California. And we've just been going through graduation. So as of this date, we've processed approximately 456 REB applications, with dozens and dozens more arriving daily. And then as I reported earlier, the portfolio exam, we had received 30 applications this year. We've issued 29 licenses, so we are also anticipating issuing that last license within the next couple of weeks. On the back of the page, it shows the details for the current active permits that the board has, and then also breaks down the active licensees by counties as of the end of July.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the board?
Okay. I've asked the question before about the large number of delinquent licensees. Is there any way to break that down as to the reasons for the delinquencies? I know some of them are minor things, relatively. But is there a way to break that down? And a two-part question is, will Breeze eventually help you to identify and be able to stay on top of these folks?
I'd say to a certain extent, there's multiple reasons for the delinquencies, some of which people change their addresses or forget to report address changes to the boards. Sometimes people move, sometimes there's confusion. We tend to see that more on the dental assisting side with the address changes. Another portion of this, though, that we have noticed an improvement in is the fact that Breeze allows all of our licensees now to renew online, but they also complete the renewal questionnaire online as well. Now, one of the biggest issues that we're seeing with that is if they forget to check a box or answer one of the questions, it doesn't necessarily complete the renewal in its entirety. And so that is a manual process where staff needs to mail out a declaration letter, and sometimes that takes time. And so I think what we're seeing is at the end of the month, the numbers are constantly a moving target. At the end of the month, it's going to fluctuate greatly. So it's really the licensee's responsibility. I know we could do additional outreach. We do lots of mailings. Automatic mailings are generated, but until a licensee pays the fee and answers all of the questions and submits the survey, their renewal is not processed as complete.
To the extent that something can be done, to me, this number is always inordinately high. And to the extent that there is something to be done that ultimately reduces this number, I think that's a goal to try to go toward. The good news, though, on the other side is we only have one county with no active licensees. The last time we saw this report, there were 2. So that's good news.
I'll have a follow-up question on the delinquent. I thought that it was the case that, like, so if someone moves out of state and just doesn't pay, right, we have no idea what happened to them, doesn't it stay in delinquent for like 5 years before it goes inactive?
Correct. So,
Okay.
So you can
So that's going to be a
have-
huge part of the number, right?
You can
is
have
it
a.
stays there for a long
Correct,
time.
it can. And so you can have a delinquent status for 5 years, and at the 5-year mark, it would fall into canceled, at which time, if they wanted to come back and practice in California, they would need to reapply.
Right, so unless we shorten that period of how long it's delinquent before it becomes inactive, I don't think there's much we're going to be able to do about this number.
And that number is set in statute, and it's DCA-wide.
That's what I'm just saying, so that's, I just don't know if it's realistic to think that we can do anything. The only thing that could be or maybe something that could be helpful at some point is to see how long things have been delinquent, because I think if something's, if it's been a delinquent a couple months, then maybe it's more likely to be, I'll say, a real delinquency, and if it's more than, a year or 2, it's probably that they're gone, and if Breeze at some point would have that information, that could be beneficial to know what's maybe the short-term delinquency that Fran's talking about versus which are the ones where, people are just gone,
And I don't like to make it more work, but what is really handy is to kind of have the ratio of the population versus the dentists. I mean, that's what I do to try and figure out some of these, whether they, whether it's a reasonable amount of dentists or not. Especially being on the access committee where we see just a very low ratio of dentists to population. I think we should just be aware of that.
Okay. Well, I just want to say something very positive here. I'd like to thank the licensing staff. For the very first time, my residents told me that they got their license through residency in less than 3 weeks. My residents actually got their license issued on July 18th, and they completed the program on June 30th, and that's record time. I've never seen that before. So I just want to give the shout out to the licensed staff. Whatever you guys are doing, keep it up.
The licensees that are practicing across the country, many of them might have several licenses, dental licenses. They also might have several permits and different things. So I can well imagine that it's kind of confusing for those folks to keep everything current. Could you just remind me or us what we do in California to tell those people that their date's coming up and they need to get current? Could you remind me of the steps we go through so that we
Sure.
help those folks?
Well, we send out the renewal notices approximately 3 months prior to the expiration date. It's on a new letter that details how you are able to renew online with Breeze. And what we're noticing with that is renewals are happening upfront a lot quicker, rather than people waiting to mail in checks and paper renewals. Also, all of the permits and licenses tied to a certain dentist are all share the same expiration date, so that when that renewal is sent out, they receive all of them at the same time, and it's all calculated on the same date, so they're not having to remember various expiration dates.
However, after 2 delinquency notices, the board no longer notifies the licensee that they're delinquent. So if you're out of state, or if you haven't submitted a change of address, we don't try to track you down. But I believe we probably can get the information into the delinquencies breaking out, how many are over a year, how many, well, we can try. We can try. I think it would also be helpful to know, and maybe we can report this annually, how many people have reached the 5-year mark and will be canceled. That might be an interesting statistic. Now, I need to shout out to our staff, and I'm sure board members know this and are very appreciative. Since Breeze, we have they have really worked long hours, put in overtime to not only try to keep up with the current workload, but with Breeze came its own challenges. And we need to be correcting these challenges along the way. It's not a project that can be put off. So our staff has done a fabulous job in trying to not only keep up with the current workload, but to also solve some of the challenges so that eventually, hopefully, this will all smooth out. But I do want to take this opportunity, I don't think we can say it enough. We want to encourage all licensees to do as much paperwork as they can online. If you need to renew a license or a permit, it's nearly done instantaneously once you push the button and everything is filled out completely. For those folks who want to continue to send in paper, that part of the process actually takes longer than it did before. So we have our staff all hands on deck. As they're talking to people on the phone about a particular issue, they'll remind them, please go to Breeze, become acquainted with it, sign up if you haven't already, try to use Breeze as much as you can to get this paperwork done. We're trying to decrease the time. So if we receive a check in the office, it's going to take much longer than it did before to process, just because the way the system is set up. So we're going to try to continue to get that word out. And hopefully after a year on Breeze, we'll be able to report some good numbers as to how many people have renewed via the Breeze system.
Are you finished with your report? Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Moving on to agenda item number 14.
At this point, I'd like to introduce Carlos Alvarez. Carlos has been a supervising investigator in our Northern California office, and he has stepped in and is functioning now as our acting chief. We are in the process of recruiting for the position, and we will keep you apprised of how that process is going. So Carlos, take it away.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Again, Carlos Alvarez, Acting Chief of Enforcement. And so I'm here to introduce our statistics and trends, and I'm happy to announce that we do have some numbers because of the last meetings. We did have problems, and as Karen covered the topic about Breeze, and it's a work in progress. So we were able to get some numbers. And so I would like to start off with the Complaint and Compliance Unit. And then this.
Carlos, if you could wait a minute, I
Sure.
think that Linda will be passing this information out.
Okay, so I'll start off with the complaint and compliance unit. Complaints received, this is the total number of complaints received during the fourth quarter, which was 797 complaints, averaging about 266 complaints per month. So right now, the active caseload is 804. So the average caseloads per consumer service analyst during the fourth quarter was 230 complaint cases. Then the complaint aging for the fourth quarter, as we have 0 to 3 months, we have 347 cases. And that's about 44%. 4 to 6 months, we have 304, total of 38%. 7 to 9 months, we have 57, that's 7%. 10 to 12 months, we have 52, 6%. And case aging from 1 to 3 years, we have 43 cases, and that's 5%. And the cases closed, total number of complaint cases closed between April 1st, 2016, June 30th, 2016, was 631, averaging 210 per month. I'm sorry.
Carlos, the complaints can come from where? Can they come from largely, I would assume, patients' families? Do they also come from community dentists? I mean, can they come from anywhere?
Yes, they come from anywhere. So like I said, we do receive complaints from doctors as well who report deficiencies in other dental practices
So if a dentist calls and says there's an issue, would you check it out? It is something that you act
Yes, we do.
favorably on?
We do generate a complaint, and we said we take all the complaints serious. So it doesn't really matter who it's come from, we'll generate a complaint.
Dr. Stewart, are you asking that question because you've heard rumors that somehow dentists can't file a complaint against a colleague? I've heard that before, that's why I'm asking. I've heard people say, oh, I didn't think a dentist could file a complaint.
I had a call this past week from a dentist who does workers' comp. And the workers' comp dentist is a kind of a small group subset that they get referred a lot of these cases to. And the gist of the call to me was that those folks are noticing that there is a deterioration, I would call it, in the quality of care that they're seeing. And so they were wondering what to do about it. And so that's why I was asking if a complaint can come from just a dentist out in the community, and your answer was helpful.
Yes, yes, and they said we'll generate a complaint on that and we'll investigate it.
So I have a question too. So the question being, if you received 797 complaints, but your caseload for the 0 to 3 months is 347, so roughly how many complaints turn into actual cases? It must be, less than 20, 25% in order to have that low a 0 to 3 month caseload.
Yes, from 0 to 3, 347, like I said, not all of them turn into complaints because what we do is we have the dental consultants there at the office where they do write a report, where they review it, and if they find that there's no errors, then at that time we close it. So that's why this time frame is, we receive the cases, then we reduce it, a lot because we have dental consultants.
So what percentage do you expect of complaints are closed and never become a case?
Well, I would say that I would have it at a low percentage. Because we have a lot of reports that we do generate that go through the complaint process. So if I was going to take a guess, I would say generally about 25% of them we don't generate any type of investigation because our dental consultants find that there's no errors.
So 75% do become cases?
Yes, approximately.
Because then I would expect if you're getting around a caseload or complaints of 797 roughly a month, then your 0 to 3 month, it's a quarter's worth. I'm sorry, I was thinking a month.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake.
So, and then also I continue when the case closed. So I was, total number of complaint cases closed between April 1st, 2016, June 30th, 2016 was 631, averaging 210 per month. The previous 5-year average was 238 closures per month.
This unit is doing an amazing job in trying to keep up with things because we've lost staff, and it's taken us a long time to fill those positions. We also had a number of retired annuitants whose contracts essentially went away. So, I mean, we've had a lot of people working very hard. We hired Crystal Williams to oversee this as the manager, and she's been on the job a couple of months, though it seems like a couple of years probably to her already. So I think we'll be looking at these numbers even getting better since we're getting close to being fully staffed in that unit again.
Yeah, so I think, Karen, that was part of my question, because obviously, long-term, you can't be having more cases come in than are cleared, and I just couldn't remember from the staffing, I was trying to look for it. Is this one of the areas that still has open positions, or they've all at least recently been filled?
Recently been filled, and I'll be giving that in my executive officer
Okay,
report
I knew it was
tomorrow.
in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
In fact, if you want to skip to my executive officer report, I think it may have the numbers in there. Okay.
So with the investigations, current open caseloads, there are currently approximately 786 open investigation cases. We have 222 probation cases, and we have 75 open inspection cases. Now, the average caseload per full-time investigators is 38. Average caseloads for special investigators are 41, and the average caseload per analyst is 42. So now we come down to get to the case aging again, and so 0 to 3 months for, now this is for investigations for the investigators. Average case 0 to 3 months is 36 cases, and that's about a total of 5%. 4 to 6 months is 41, 5%. 6 to 12 months, 226, 29%. 1 to 2 years, I have at that 376, 47%. 2 to 3 years, 91, and that's 12%, and 3+ years, 16, with 2%.
Now, just to clarify, these timelines include going to the Attorney General's office?
No, these timelines are not including the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if somebody just kind of wondering why we have such high cases, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, 3+ years. It all depends on the cases. If we're dealing with fraud, then those cases could actually go on for 1 to 2 years, or even 3, depending on the amount of money that we're investigating. And also, we could extend that time if we're working with the district attorney's office, then that time also expands. And so then also some of that time that we have active is unlicensed activity, which takes time, which takes planning. And so that's why some of them are at the 1 to 3 year mark.
Carlos, one of the things that I've come to understand is that even though a complaint can come from a dentist in the community, you still have to have an engaged patient, because that patient has got to cooperate in the investigation or nothing's going to move forward. And it's come to my attention that in some cases, I don't want to say many cases, but in some cases, the patients are just not interested in pursuing this situation. They just as soon move on, not take the time out of their life, and deal with it. Is that something that you're familiar with as well? Is that a rare occurrence that a patient would choose not to?
Yes, it does happen, where the patients, we actually go and make contact with the patients, explain the investigation, and they don't want to get involved. So therefore, we have to come up through different avenues to investigate it. And so some of those avenues is retrieving the subpoena or getting the search warrant, depending if it's criminal that we're investigating. But yes, there's different avenues, but there is times where patients just don't want to get involved because they don't want to take the time to go to court, they don't want to testify, and they want nothing done with the investigations. So I had that experience as well. So since our last report in January 2016, the number of cases over 1 year, 1 year old has increased from 38% to 61%. So the number of cases in the oldest category, 3 years or older, have decreased from 17 to 16.
And at this point, I've got to chime in and say, we have constantly been recruiting for positions, investigator positions in our Orange office. We have, I've lost track now, 3 vacancies or 4 vacancies in Orange office?
We have now 4, but we do have 3 people in backgrounds right now. So there's still a process to do, and we just have the newest one that opened up, so we have 4 there.
So 4 vacancies, when you consider that the caseload for a sworn investigator is 38, so we've got a lot of cases that we need to catch up on, and we're hopeful that when we can hire, part of the challenge with hiring the sworn investigators is that the backgrounds that need to be done prior to giving an offer oftentimes can take 4 to 6 months. So we're hoping to be able to get some new people on real soon and to be able to catch up on some of this work. This isn't unique to any of the boards, but the dental board, we have our own investigators, whereas many of the other boards use the Division of Investigation.
Yeah.
So we're
our
hoping to see improvement.
Our numbers are going to improve once we fill these vacancies, because one of our vacancies here in Northern California, we just filled, so that should be starting on September the 1st. So our numbers are going to improve here in Northern California with that, so which is a plus for the consumer. So now we go into case closures, and this is with the Attorney General's office or District Attorney's office. So the total number of investigation cases closed filed with the Attorney General's office or with the District Attorney's office. And now when they're filed with the District Attorney's office, because we found some criminal act. So that's why we filed with the District Attorney's office. So during the 4th quarter is 201, an average of approximately 67 cases per month that we closed that went to the Attorney General's office or District Attorney's office. So the average number of days an investigation took to complete the investigation during the 4th quarter was 327 days. The previous 5-year average number of days to close a case was 386 days. So, and we also have a chart if you want to review it. So it has gone, so previous 5 years, so yeah, case close was 386, and again, we'll go back to because of the shortage and the vacancies that we have. And some also extend to the type of investigations that we had. So a case referred to for discipline, total number of cases referred to the Attorney General's office during the 4th quarter was 35, and that's approximately 11 referrals per month. The 3-month average for a disciplinary case to be completed was 973 days. And we'll also have that chart to be to reflect on if you wish to view it.
I'm going to jump in at this point and say that Carlos and I met with Linda Schneider. She came to our San Diego meeting, if you'll recall, at the first part of the year and identified herself. She is the Assistant Attorney General, so, and she's over the licensing unit. She came to Sacramento and was very candid in her review. The Attorney General's office is now required by the passage and signing by the governor of SB 467 in 2005, which will now require them to also have performance measures, as has been imposed upon the Department of Consumer Affairs for a number of years now. So she's working closely to look at their numbers, how long they've had cases over there. She met with Carlos and I and indicated that the dental cases are pretty complicated cases in terms of comparing dental cases to other boards that they investigate. So she said, she was very candid and said, you know, some of this is taking too long. And so let's work together to find out how we can decrease our timelines. And so we looked at the numbers, and we're going to try to work together to, I'd like to develop policies and procedures on our end to cut down on our timelines on our end, and she's going to work equally to try to cut down on timelines on her end too. So we'll be reporting in the future on how that's going. You know, it's just one of those other little projects that we're starting to look at. But it's one that's absolutely necessary, obviously, and it's also exciting at the same time to see where we can make improvements going forward into the future.
So as we move along, we have, I provided a chart number 1, which is a description of the statistics. And if you notice that January through March of 2015, 2016 fiscal year, it's not in there, and that was because, again, we were coming up with the problems with Breeze, so we don't have those numbers. But we're actually doing case cleanup on this, so hopefully for the next meeting, we'll have all these numbers. But if I inspect it, it would total out the average that we've been receiving complaints, and we've been averaging about 3,000 complaints. So if you see, right now, we're at 2326. So if the average works out once we work out the coding, we're going to come back and average out to 3,000 complaints. So if we want to move along, if you have any questions from chart 1. Then as we spoke and as we covered chart 2, I don't know if anybody has any questions from chart 2. And also we had chart 3 with the case categories. And again, January through March, we didn't have those numbers. And then on chart 3, if everybody's viewing it, how we have NA starting from 2010 all the way through October, then we came up some numbers through April through June. And that was, again, with Breeze. What happened was on these descriptions, they swapped the descriptions because we used to have substance abuse, mental physical impairment together. So somehow with Breeze, it got switched over. So during the coding, it didn't pick up any of that. So we're working on that. So again, hopefully through the next meeting, we'll have all the numbers here to provide for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos.
So
Oh, I'm sorry, he's not finished. Okay.
Okay. So I finished up with Part A, Enforcement Statistics Trends. Now, on the last one, there is a probation monitoring worksheet that I have, but we'll go back to that once I start speaking about the performance measures with the department. And I'll go back to this one here. So I'll start off with the performance measures for quarter 3, and that was through January through March of 2016. So on PM1, that's the number of complaints and convictions received. So total received was 848. Monthly average was 248. So complaints received was 744, and actual convictions was 104. If we go to PM2 intake, the average cycle time from complaint receipt to the date the complaint was assigned to an investigator, the target average date that the DCA has is 10 days. Our actual average day was 8 days. So we actually were below the 10-day target area. So this is an improvement. Go to the next page, PM3, intake and investigations. It's the average number of days to complete the entire enforcement process for the cases not transmitted to the Attorney General's office. Just includes the intake and investigation. With that one there, the target average is 270 days, and the actual average days that we had was 191 days. So again, that's something that we improved there from intake to investigations. On PM4, formal discipline. That's average number of days to complete the entire enforcement process for cases transmitted to the Attorney General for formal discipline. Includes intake, investigation, and transmittal outcome. And that target average day was 440 days. Actual average is 1,021 days. And again, as Karen spoke about, we did meet with the Attorney General's office to actually drop these numbers. So we're working with them, and they're working through a process. So here with PM7 probation intake, the average number of days from the monitor assignment to the date the monitor must make the first contact with the probationer. So the target date is 10 days, and we're actually below that. We're actually at actual 8 days to actually make contact with the probationer. And so then we come to PM8 with the probation violations response. This is the average number of days from the date a violation of probation is reported to the date the assigned monitor initiates appropriate action. Now with this one here, it's kind of inaccurate because they have a target date of 15 days, and DCA came back, the actual average days for us was 28 days. And so when I saw this, I knew that this was wrong. So that's why I included the probation monitoring worksheet performance measures number 8, and this was for in-house, and we have a cycle time of 8 days. So we're actually below the 15 days here, and we're not actually at the 28 days that is here reported. So this is in-house, and like I said, we're below that target date.
So on PM7, I know your average is below the target, but it's increasing. Are you concerned about that at all, or is it just an anomaly in a quarter?
Again, it's actual, when I go back to probation intake, when it's the average is 8 days, but I have some cases, if you're looking at it, my report that I attached, number 7, probation intake, we have a cycle time of 1 day, we have a cycle time of 5, and cycle times of 7. And a lot of times, again, that happens with, I could say with the schedules, with the investigators, trying to schedule appointments with the probationers. And a lot of times, that's what we do. It's a lot of times, the probationers can't meet with us on time. You know, we wish we could meet with them on the first day, but we do make contact with them, and sometimes they don't return the phone calls to us, so that's why these numbers sometimes increase. So I get to diversion. So the Diversion Evaluation Committee, the DEC, program statistics for the quarter ending June 30th of 2016 are provided below. These statistics reflect the participants' activity in the diversion recovery program and are presented information for purposes only. So we actually didn't have too much to add here because as of May, we only had 1 probation referral. And so active participants, we still have 19. So nothing has actually changed just by adding 1 participant from April, May, and June. So nothing has changed on that one.
Okay, good, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Carlos? Everybody okay? Any comments or questions from members of the public in attendance? Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
We're now going to go into a joint session with the Dental Board and the Dental Assisting Council. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and those members of the council, and then okay, we are ready to convene the joint meeting of the Dental Board of California and the Dental Assisting Council. The purpose of this joint meeting is to allow the board and the Dental Assisting Council to interact with each other, ask questions, and participate in discussions. Since the board has already had a roll call and established a quorum, it is only necessary for us to have a roll call and establish a quorum for the DAC. So I think Judy Forsythe will take care of that for us.
Okay.
It's Ann.
Ann Contreras, present.
I just changed your name.
Oh. Pamela Davis Washington. Tamara McNeely. And Emma Ramos. We have a quorum.
First agenda item for the joint meeting is approval of the joint Dental Board and Dental Assisting Council meeting minutes from May 11 of 2016.
So I have one amendment. Once again, I was left off of the board members present. I wasn't absent though either, but I was actually present, so my name's just not there at all.
Okay. Taking that under consideration. Any other concerns, observations, or recommended edits to the minutes?
I have a question, Doctor. Okay. For joint 12, regarding the fee increases, I was just wondering if there's a separate fee for a permit versus licensure fees for dental assisting, since it's a different type of license, such as the OSA, oral surgery assistant, and ortho, since those are permits versus licenses such as RDA and RDA-EF.
Yes, there are separate fees for the orthodontic assistant permit and the dental sedation assistant permit.
Okay, and they're about the same fees, right? They're $100 each that's going to increase?
I think that we're looking at the minutes right now. Did you have a specific question about number 12 on the minutes? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Is there something here that's not stated correctly, or
No,
do
I
you
was
have a
just
general
wondering-
question that we could take up someplace else on the agenda perhaps?
Perhaps we could do that. I was just wondering if I could just bring it up here, since I wasn't present at the meeting last time.
Okay.
And I had asked Spencer
Okay.
if I could do that. So regarding the permits, I know several people that have dual permits, such as oral surgery and RDA. Since the fees are going to be increased, is there a way of combining or doing
You mean
a discounted,
reduce the
reduced
fees or combined?
fees for combined, since they're both not licenses, one is a permit?
I don't know if this is the right time for this, Spencer, so I'll defer to you.
So can we bring it up in the next meeting or at a certain time?
The,
'Cause
we're concerned about the fees for the dental sedation, or I'm sorry, the orthodontic assistant, who may also be a registered dental assistant and have to pay both fees.
Right.
As is standard practice and across all boards, if you have a permit and a license, you would pay separate renewal fees. So at this point in time, that's how the regulations would be structured. And so at this point, the fee package has already been initiated, and we're in the response to comments portion of that process.
Will this issue be addressed during the workshops, though?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, but Ann, just to clarify, if you have further questions, let's talk to staff about it. And if something does need to go on a future agenda, we'd certainly put it on for discussion.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments or concerns regarding the minutes? So was there an amendment that was?
Yes.
Okay,
So the
right,
motion would
okay,
be
right,
to
for
approve as
attendance?
amended.
Okay, so, no further comments, entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll so move, Mackenzie.
Okay, moved McKenzie, second?
Second.
Okay, seconded, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram?
Yes.
Dawson? King? Lai? Lay? Mackenzie?
Yes.
Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Contreras?
Abstain?
Ramos? Davis Washington? McNally? Motion carries.
Okay, moving forward. Joint agenda item number 3, overview of dental education programs, course curriculum requirements, and the application process.
At the last joint meeting, some questions came up regarding the approval process for dental assisting educational programs and courses and the curriculum requirements and the application process. So for informational purposes, staff put together this memo to include, I think for best practices, we'll just continue to include this information at every meeting moving forward, so that if any questions arise, we'll have it. Since the last board meeting, we've approved 15 applications for programs and courses, including 2 RDA programs, 4 radiation safety courses, 1 Pitt and Fisher sealant course, an ultrasonic scalar course, 2 infection control courses, and 5 orthodontic assistant permit courses. No applications have been denied, and we're currently in the process of reviewing 12 applications that we've received since the last meeting. The notable statistic on this sheet is that the fact that we've received 3 RDAEF program applications, which is unheard of. So we've had the same programs approved in California for a very long time, and all of a sudden there's a great interest in submitting applications and having additional RDAEF programs. So we will need to be looking at that in the future as it relates to examination availability as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Something that came up at the workshop regarding hours and approval, and I was just curious, do you guys know at the top of the head what the breakout for the RDA programs that were approved, what their hours were, specifically for the clinical hours?
The individual applications that were approved since the last board meeting? No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. So it was just, there was a comment made regarding what the intent was of how the language is written versus what, how it's being interpreted, and that there was a program that, it was my understanding, had 20 hours of extern that was approved, and that just raised a concern. That was never the intent when those hours were changed. And so that is language that we want to be looking at the regulatory moving forward, how we can ensure that there's sufficient amount of extern hours when these new applications come forth. So.
That would need to be developed as part of the regulatory workshops, and so that language would still be a work in progress. So
Okay, so
that
we'll make a note of that. and,
staff has made a note of what comments have been made at the regulatory workshops, and we'll be working on the final draft language to bring to the board and the council in 2017.
Thank you. Any further comments on this item? Okay, any comments or questions, suggestions from members of the public in attendance? Okay. We don't need to take a vote on anything on this, do we? Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to joint agenda item number 4, dental assisting examination statistics.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jana Adams, Dental Assisting Exam Coordinator. Staff has provided statistics for all dental assisting examinations. Due to the implementation of BREEZE, staff has not been able to generate reports that pull statistics for first-time and repeat test takers, and we were also not able to generate statistics for on-the-job training written exams as well. However, the following tables provide pass and fail statistics from examinations taken in 2016, covering all written examinations, RDA practical examinations, and RDA-EF clinical and practical examinations. Staff has also provided pass and fail rates of overall candidates from 2011 to 2016, broken down by North, South, and Central examination fail and pass rates. Lastly, staff has provided the spreadsheets that are now posted to the board's website that provide pass and fail rates broken down by each program. The statistics that we have do not include the practical exam that was held in Fresno in mid-July. Currently, staff is working on entering grades so that way we can send results to candidates. But as of right now, I do have the preliminary numbers to share with you. In July, at the Fresno exam, we had 454 candidates attend. 210 failed, 244 passed. which gave us a 46% failure rate and a 54% pass rate. And also currently, we are working on the 2017 RDA and RDA-EF exam schedule. My goal is to hopefully have that posted by October or so. Hopefully November. Sorry.
One quick note, also this is actually Jana's last meeting with the board, and so she will be leaving at the end of this month to go work for another state agency, so we'll greatly miss Jana, and I wanted to thank her for her great work and dedication to the examination process and to the Dental Assistant Council. So one of her last duties is to help me find locations for all the RDA and RDA-EF exams for 2017.
We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we finished with that item? Any other comments or questions regarding this agenda item? From the board, from members of the public? Any comments or suggestions? Okay. All right, moving on to joint,
The tables on this page show current statistics by license and permit type as of July 21st, 2016. And then the table on the back of the memo, or lower if it's online, provides current license statistics for all licensees who have both a registered dental assistant and registered dental hygienist license.
I'm going to comment a little bit on that. So that was an item that had been requested, I believe, at the March meeting, and we've been working on being able to pull the data. And so I know the table looks a little strange, but you'll notice that the grand total equals on both sides. So if you look at each separate individual line item, you'll see on current active, of the 459 that are dual licensed, 949 have a current active RDA license, and 3,611 have a current RDH license, and so that would be the same logic falling all the way down.
okay, makes sense. Any questions, concerns? Members of the public? Okay. Moving on to joint agenda item number 6, a report of the results of the Department of Consumer Affairs Office Professional Examination Services, occupational analysis of the RDA-EF practical exam.
I'm going to be handing over the presentation to Dr. Linser from the Office of Professional Examination Services. Okay. I did want to note that there was an error on the memo, that this is just in relation to the RDA-EF occupational analysis, as we discussed the RDA occupational analysis at the last meeting. And that just to note on the occupational analysis note that you have on page 6, there is a calculation issue regarding the response rate. And I believe Dr. Linser will also be providing you with the correct up-to-date percentage, and we will be sure to update that information once the OA is posted on our board website.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back, Dr. Linser. Welcome
Thank
back.
you. I'm Heidi Linser. I'm the Chief of the Office of Professional Examination Services. Here to talk to you about your RDA-EF occupational analysis that we completed about a year ago, but the report was recently completed. Just as a way of introduction, the Office of Professional Examination Services provides professional consulting services in examination validation and development to DCA's boards, bureaus, committees, and of course your Dental Assisting Council. And we make recommendations based on regulations, professional guidelines, and technical standards related to licensure exams. Licensure exams, they must provide a reliable method for identifying practitioners who are able to practice safely and competently, and they should focus on entry-level tasks and knowledge important for public protection. Some more background on OPES. Business and Professions Code, Section 139, mandated that DCA or OPES make a policy regarding examination development and validation. And part of that policy requires boards, bureaus, and committees to conduct an occupational analysis every 5 to 7 years for each of their licensing classifications. And BMP 139 also requires that boards submit a report every year indicating the status of occupational analysis and examination development. So OPS has been working with the dental board very closely to assist you with bringing all of your examinations into compliance with 139. And we really enjoy working with the board and the staff and the subject matter experts and learning about your profession. It's really interesting to see all the work that you do and how intricate it is, especially the RDA and the RDA-EF. Have no idea until we work on these projects how much is involved in some of the practice-related trades, the healing arts. So, appreciate that. Okay, so as I said, for your licensure exam, we need to focus on identifying practitioners who are able to practice safely and competently, focus on entry-level tasks and knowledge important for public protection. Professional standards and guidelines dictate a structure and a process for developing a valid, legally defensible exam. And so that process starts with the occupational analysis, as what we're doing for a lot of your programs. We started with that step. And that's, we're going to talk about that in more detail. So that's what we do as a first step to develop a description of the scope of practice of your profession. Following the occupational analysis, one of the final results of it is an examination outline that tells us what content should be covered on your licensing examinations and in what proportions. So how much weight is given to the different subject areas. Once we have that examination outline, then we go to work at item writing or writing test questions to make sure that we cover all those content areas. And we work with subject matter experts to do all these processes to make sure that everything is job-related and legally defensible. Once the test questions are written, we have another review of them by other subject matter experts. They review and revise the test questions that were written by previous groups. And then we work to develop a passing score for that examination. Some of yours are set in regulation, but there is another process for evaluating the difficulty of the examination based on subject matter experts' opinions and determining a criterion reference passing score. So we're going to work with your board to move all your exams to that type of passing score. So as I said, occupational analysis, it defines practice in terms of the actual tasks that new licensees must be able to perform safely and competently, and also the essential knowledge required for safe and effective practice. And the reason why we go to all this trouble to describe your profession in great and gory detail is that our professional standards and guidelines state that the evidence of validity based on test content requires a thorough and explicit definition of the content domain of interest. So that's what we're trying to meet, is that standard of developing a thorough and explicit definition of the content. And this is to protect your licensees from tests that are just willy-nilly thrown together not in a research-related fashion, not in a fashion that comes from the people who are actually doing the work. And also a close link between the test content and job content must be demonstrated. So that's the other part of the process. So occupational analysis serves several functions, provides a description of current practice. It provides the basis of job-related fair and legally defensible examinations, establishes examination validity through the linking of the content to the critical job competencies, and then provides a basis for legislation and policy sometimes too. For a regulated profession, the focus is on public protection and entry-level practice. And the emphasis is on those activities that can potentially harm the public and the level of competence required for safe and independent practice. We try to make, as you'll see, we try to focus on making sure we collect data from entry-level subject matter experts and entry-level licensees through our survey throughout the entire process. This is to make sure that we don't have an unusually high standard on the test from people who've been practicing for 20 years. They may have a different standard than people who are entry-level. So we also, we place our emphasis on activities of an entry-level practitioner, person who's ready to practice independently, but who may still learn some additional tasks on the job. So, as I said, focus of the occupational analysis is on public protection, identify tasks that entry-level licensees must perform safely and competently, and tasks should reflect situations commonly encountered by entry-level licensees. We also don't want to ask things that they may not be encountering in their work, things that are handled by higher people who are way more experienced. So, the occupational analysis process starts with telephone interviews with subject matter experts and research into the profession. We conduct stakeholder and practitioner focus groups, and we do a survey. We develop a survey, administer the survey to a sample or an entire group population of licensees. We perform data analysis to tell us how important the various tasks and knowledge are and how frequently the tasks are performed. And then we have final practitioner focus groups to determine the final weights for your examination. In order to achieve reliable results, as I said, the process requires involvement of licensees with diverse practice backgrounds. We try to get groups with, who have different work settings, practice types, and geographic practice in different geographic regions. So for your project, the interviews and initial focus groups, the whole purpose of having those is to provide complete and technically accurate coverage of job content. We could read up a lot about what you do, but for licensure, as we said, in order to make it legally defensible, we have to have the direct input of subject matter experts. And we really appreciate working with the board, and they've been really great in getting us all the SMEs that we needed, and very, very passionate and committed SMEs who are willing to take time off work to come and come on Saturdays to assist us with this project. And I will say my staff also takes their Saturdays to work with licensees, and Raul Villanueva headed up this project, and Chelsea Van Zant, who is no longer with our office, but she also worked with Raul on this project. And we worked, when we did the RDAEF project, we did it at the same time as we did the RDA that I reported on last time. So this was a complicated project. We were sort of doing two occupational analysis at the same time, even though there's a lot of overlap in the two professions. So we did as much as we could together to be more efficient and save the board money and time. But at some point, we had to split them into the two professions. So we had the stakeholder focus groups together in June of 2015, and the groups included some dentists, RDAs, RDAEFs, and an educator. And those stakeholder groups were to identify just trends in the profession and get any concerns out before we started the actual process. And then we discussed changes and trends, as I see, I already said that. We had workshops in July and August to develop the tasks and knowledges and identify the demographic variables. And then we developed a survey based on the information. And so the surveys for the RDA were separate from the survey for the RDAEF. So we made two separate surveys. We administered a pilot survey to see if we needed to change anything, and then a final survey. So the survey administration, so we had RDAEF ones. We did a proportionally stratified sampling by years licensed and county of practice. So what we do is look at how many years people are licensed, and we oversample entry level, which to us means 0 to 5. And that's to make sure we get enough response in that entry level perspective that I was talking about. We don't want all of our data based on people who have been licensed for 20 years or more. And over time, over the years, we found if we just sample everyone, we tend to get more data from people who are licensed 20 years and more. And so we have to oversample the 0 to 5 in order to make sure that their responses are represented. So for the RDAEF, we did that, and we sample by county to make sure that we get a representative sample from across the state. So big counties, we select less people, and smaller counties, we select more of the people in order to try to even out that data. For the RDAEF2s, we sampled 100% of that population. So Sarah was telling you about, we had an error in our calculation for the response rate, and I apologize for that. But we did, right before I came here, Raul was, he was very busy, but he was able to check his notes and recalculate. And so actually the response rate for the RDAF was 15.5%, which is very, very good. It's a small group of people, but that's what it was, and that's really great. Any response rate between 10 and 20% is typical, so being 15, that's a really great response rate. And we will update the board's report and give you a corrected report, and I apologize for that mistake. So when we had the final practitioner focus groups, we evaluate the results of the surveys. We look at the demographic characteristics of who the respondents are. We look at the preliminary content area weights, and the SMEs review the task and knowledges, and they determine which tasks are linked to which knowledge, and that also provides our content validity. And that linkage is critical to establish that tasks can't be completed without the knowledge. As you know, your tests are, your written test is a multiple choice test, and you want to make sure you're testing the right knowledge. And so linked tasks and knowledge are used by the item writers to ensure that the test questions are job related. The task provides the context for the question, and then the question really assesses the knowledge. So the final group developed the examination outline for the written examination based on the occupational analysis results. So now we can talk about the actual results of your study. So as we did for the RDA occupational analysis, we include a lot of demographic questions in the survey to provide extra information to the board. And we also included additional practice-related questions, and that data is provided in Appendix E of your report. And I'm not going to report on all that, but I know that will probably be of interest to the council if there's any. That's to look at changes and trends. Did the licensees think that certain practices are becoming more frequent, or certain things are becoming less frequent and going away, just to get their take on that. But also remember that your numbers are small, so that's just a snapshot of what this small sample is saying. So I just want to caution you that, remember, the numbers are small. So the purpose of demographics from a test, from an occupational analysis point of view, is describe the respondents in terms of experience, training, education, work setting, geographic location, provide a context for interpreting the results, just to show that we had a representative sample. We didn't get all the people to answer from Southern California. We didn't get all the people who work in one setting. We got a representative sample. So some of the data, here's the years licensed. So we had from 0 to 5 years, we had 26%. From 6 to 10 years licensed, we had 24%. And I've rounded these percentages for you. In the report, they have a decimal point, but I find that distracting for a presentation. So I rounded those if you're looking at the report. For people 11 to 20 years, we had 32%. So we still kind of got that big number from 11 to 20, even with the oversampling. More than 20 years licensed was 17%. So the question was when they were licensed as an RDEF. Prior to 2010, when you had your change in practice, regulatory change, 50% were licensed prior to 2010, so they're currently an RDAEF. Prior to 10, currently an RDAEF2, we had 22%. Those licensed after 2010, currently RDAEF2 was 21%. Source of work experience to become an RDAEF. So 63% had on-the-job training from the dentist, 31% private career school, 26% community college program, 15% university level program, On the job from experienced RDA, RDAEF, 7%, private educational school, 6%, and then the others were very low numbers, community dental and online school or military. Primary work setting, so most were in group dental practices, 46%, solo dental practice, 40%, specialty dental practice, 4%, government, public health, dental school, military, very low. Here's the type of dental practice in primary work setting. Again, we have a overwhelmingly general dentistry, and the others fall out very tiny numbers. This shows percentage of time spent on principal work tasks in an average week. And I know the numbers are small, so I'll tell you. So the 37% said of their time was spent assisting dentists at chairside. Taking final impressions for permanent indirect restorations, that was 14.6% of the time. Placing a retraction cord for impression procedures, 14%. Taking final impressions for tooth-borne prosthetic appliances, 9.6%. Conducting direct restoration-related work, 9%, and that's EF2s only. Cement permanent indirect restorations, 7%. Perform preliminary adjustment of permanent indirect restorations, EF2s, 5.6%. And working with endodontic master points and accessory points, 3.6%. And conducting preliminary myofunctional evaluation of the head and neck, 2.3%. And that one's also EF2s. So they have quite a variety of tasks that they perform. It's very interesting. And to make sure, as I said, that we cover the entire state, we ask them where they're licensed, where they practice, and we usually get the biggest county, of course, is Los Angeles and the Bay Area. So we've got equal numbers, Los Angeles and the Bay Area, and I've sort of lumped these together so don't have so many. We do it by county, but we lumped them into bigger blocks so it's easier. So we have San Joaquin Valley, Sacramento Valley, 11 and 13%, San Diego and vicinity 6%, Shasta Cascade less than 1, Riverside 5, Sierra Mountain 7, North Coast 2, and South Central Coast 4. And what we'd like to see is just a nice distribution across the state. So when we sent out the survey, we had the tasks listed for the various things that the RDAEFs do, and we asked them how often are these tasks performed in your current practice. And the scale went from rarely, this task is one of the tasks I perform least often, to very often, this task is one of the tasks I perform most often. And then they were also rated on an importance scale, so from 1 to 5 of minor importance to critically important. How important is this task in the performance of your current practice? They also had a list of knowledge statements, and they were asked how important is this knowledge in the performance of your current practice. So for us to identify which of these are critical or more critical, by definition, they're all important when we put them in the survey. We don't put anything in that is not important, but that's what our whole process is, to make sure that everything that goes out is at least somewhat important at the beginning. And then we get the data, and it confirms that, yes, indeed, everything's important, but the question is, some things are more important than others, some things are done more frequent than others. And that's what our critical index is to tell us. So for tasks, we multiply each respondent's frequency rating times their importance rating, and then take the mean value across all respondents. So that's critical task equals mean frequency times importance. And then we use that index to review the data from the tasks, and we ensure that the SMEs can evaluate task criticality in terms of both frequency and importance. So in other words, you might have a task that's very important but performed very infrequently, such as assist in emergency care of a patient. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's very, very important. So because we have these two rating scales, you make sure that things that are done infrequently but are important get weight on your examination. So And also for the knowledge, the critical index is simply the knowledge mean importance rating. We don't use frequency for the knowledge statements. So in the workshop, we asked the SMEs to review the data. So we had all the tasks listed with their critical values, and we have the knowledge listed with their importance values, and we have them listed in descending order of how, so the most important things are at the top and the least important things are at the bottom. And we asked the SMEs, are any of these things at the bottom that are rated less important, are they so less important that we should take them off of the exam plan, that they shouldn't even be tested? And if so, we asked them to set a cutoff point, and if that's the case, then any tasks or knowledge that are below that cutoff point, we wouldn't include on the examination. For this particular project, the SMEs determined that all the tasks and knowledge were important enough to retain, so they evaluated the data and retained all task and knowledge statements. So one of the results, as I said, of the occupational analysis is the specification of the weights for the various content sections of the examination. So we call this the examination outline. And so for the RDAEF, we had the SMEs review a breakdown of weights for the different content areas, and they looked based on the critical task values, and we also had them review the breakdown based on all the knowledge importance values. And then they had a discussion, and they used their judgment to determine the weights that they thought best represent the relative importance of each content area to RDAEF practice. So they determined that patient treatment and care should be 40% of the exam, dental procedures, direct and indirect restorations 45%, and dental specialty procedures 15%. They determined that the majority of practice-related knowledge was located in content areas 1 and 2, so that's why those have a lot more weight than the content area 3. And they also broke down content area 3 into endodontic procedures and prosthetic appliances. So as part of the process and as part of the report, we like the report to be meaningful to other stakeholders in the industry, so we try to put some additional narrative information in there that can be of assistance when people outside of the profession are reading the report. So we asked the SMEs to assist us with developing content area descriptions, so if someone didn't know what this profession was about, they could say, oh, what's involved in patient treatment and care? What's involved in dental specialty procedures? So we have developed these content area descriptions. So patient treatment and care assesses the candidate's ability to review the patient's dental health by assessing medical and dental history, to note and chart the oral cavity, and to provide instructions regarding oral hygiene, preoperative care, and postoperative care. Dental procedures, direct and indirect restorations, content area 2. This area assesses candidates' knowledge of materials, techniques, procedures, and scope of practice regarding direct and indirect restoration dental procedures. And content area 3, this area assesses candidates' knowledge of materials, techniques, procedures, and scope of practice regarding dental specialty procedures. And this also shows that, we're covering all of the scope of practice for an RDA-EF. So, next steps for your board for this program would be to develop new test questions based on the updated occupational analysis, and at some point review the RDA-EF practical examination and make sure that's covering critical areas of practice. And as you know, we're working with your board to do a lot of your programs at once, so we have prioritized some projects to be done before others, and we're working with the board to make sure that they all get done. At all times, we're working on multiple projects of yours, but I can't tell you exactly when we're going to get to the EF. It's on the list, and the next board meeting, we'll talk maybe more about all the board's projects and the status of them and the timeline for getting everything updated. Is there any questions? Yes.
I thought it was interesting that the dominant tasks are mostly performed at the RDA level. There are a few RDA EF1s, and of course, numerically there aren't that many EF2s. But I also thought it was interesting how many of them had received on-the-job training. And I know a lot of the EF1s were originally brought with their dentists to the program and sort of trained with them. In fact, that was a requirement for a long time. And so it kind of works out. But, you know, we've always been curious as to how much the EF2 duties were actually being utilized. In fact, we did a previous survey of that. But it does seem that they've made it through, and they are part of the occupational analysis. So they're being done enough, I guess, that they are, you know, they're being validated as actually being utilized in the workplace.
Good to hear.
On topic, but a little off. With the rise of associate dentistry happening right now in the profession, how does one utilize the EFs when there's a limited number that the overseeing dentist can have? How does that apply to an associate? Were we able to, that was a question I posed to you privately, but I was just wondering where we were with that. Were we able to? Okay.
How many RDIEFs can be working for a dentist at the same time?
Right now, it says 3, but what if it's an associate? Can the associate have 3 as well?
If the associate is the associate dentist?
Yeah. That was a question posed to me by an office who utilizes their EFs, and I said I'd bring it to the board. 'Cause I didn't.
That's a Spencer issue, okay? So we have a dentist who is utilizing 3 RDAEFs, which is the maximum that one dentist can have at one time. That
And he
dentist
has-
brings an associate in.
Right.
Now, this is another licensed dentist. Can that associate then have 3 EFs as well? Is it per doctor? Is
or
it
per
per
office?
office?
Right. Well, that was I believe it's per dentist, not
It
per
is.
office. So, yeah,
You are
the
correct.
associate
It's
can
per
have
dentist.
3, each dentist can have 3.
That's right.
Yeah, it is per dentist.
Thank you. I'll just bring that back to that office. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or question in that area? Okay. Is Heidi finished with her report? Okay. Thank you very much for that report. Very comprehensive and gives us a lot of information. Very useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to joint 7. Okay. Okay, joint agenda item number 7, action regarding the registered dental assistants and extended function written examination in accordance with Code Section 139 requirements.
So as is standard practice, after a occupational analysis is completed, it's usually then time to work on the examination development to update our current examinations to link it to the findings of the occupational analysis. So today we're asking the board and the Dental Assisting Council to consider and possibly direct staff to work with DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services to update the board's RDAEF written examination based on the findings of the recently completed occupational analysis of the RDAEF profession. So at this point, this is just asking for permission to direct staff to initiate the contract agreement with OPES. That would be followed up with a series of workshops and examination development with the potential new examination to be released, I believe, in 2018.
Okay. Do I have a board member that is interested in stepping up to the plate on that one?
You can just say so moved.
I can say so moved. I was told by my boss I could say so moved.
Karen's the boss.
Okay, so moved. Proceed.
Who's
Okay.
second?
Sounds good to me. Does it need a second?
Yeah. you do.
Okay. So moved needs a second.
Yes. You can't direct staff on your own.
I'm trying here.
I know you
I can direct staff, but you
But
can't direct staff.
okay. I do have limits, right?
Public comment.
So it was moved and seconded. Any public comment? Any further comments by the board? We'll take a roll call vote.
Dr. Morrow?
Yes.
Forsythe, yes. Burton? Chappelle Ingram? King? Sorry, I missed Dawson. Katie? King?
Yes.
Lai? Lay? McKenzie? Stewart? Witcher? Wu? Contreras?
Yes.
Ramos? Davis Washington? McNeely? Motion carries.
Okay, agenda item number 8.
I'd like to introduce Leslie Compaz. She is one of the new AGPAs in our dental assisting unit. She has been tasked with the dental assisting regulatory package, and she's been coordinating and running all of the regulatory workshops. And so since we're in Sacramento, I asked her to come and give the report today.
Good afternoon. Leslie Compaz, Educational Program Analyst for the Dental Assisting Unit. So I'm going to be giving a brief update on what's going on with these Dental Assisting Council regulatory workshops. To date, the board has successfully held 4 regulatory development workshops, with 3 remaining throughout 2016. So our aim for the September 16 regulatory workshop is to finalize the discussion on RDA programs and go ahead and commence the discussion on the RDA-EF programs, educational programs. And as you can see, there's one scheduled as well for October, and the last one, December 16th. Any questions?
Sounds good. Any questions from the public in attendance? With none said, agenda item number 9 for joint. Any board members or any public comment on items not on the agenda? With that not said, joint item number 10 is we will adjourn the joint meeting of the Dental Board and the Dental Assisting Council for today's session. And we are also adjourning the Dental Board, going into recess until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for the Dental Board of California meeting. I'm sorry? 5? On which one?
Oh, his report was the introduction of Dr. Kumar.
Right, that was my report, right.
Don't get him started.
I have,
You can break now, or you can break in a couple of hours.
when I get wound up, it takes a while to wind down, you know, so. Okay. Everybody have a good evening, and we are adjourned until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry?